Well, Happy New Year, everybody. It's 2026 on a Tuesday night in January. Wow, where did the time go, huh? Looks like we got a bunch of people in the chat already. I think everybody knows who the guest is, the special guest is tonight. We've had some good guests on in the last few months. We had George Felice on, the guy that did painted a bunch of Eddie's guitars back in the mid-'80s. We've had Steve Rosen on. Dweezil Zappa made an appearance at Dojo 5150 here back, almost a year ago. Time flies. But there's been this guy out there who I've been watching for a long time. And in a couple of weeks, I'm going to get a chance to actually meet him, which I'm really looking forward to. We'll get into that later. But there's this guy out there that's been just nailing some Van Halen tones. He's been playing guitar for many, many, many years, and he's a fabulous guitar player. He's incredible. Just watching him is a treat for me. But he's been doing some really, really cool stuff that I know pretty much everybody that's watching this show has been paying attention to. So I had to reach out and ask him if he would be willing to jump on and chat about a few things, and not just about the recent stuff that he's been doing, but also some of the stuff that got him to that point of where where he was able to do that. So I hope we have some fun tonight. I'm sure we will. I'm going to try to jump into the chat when I can, and we'll introduce this gentleman here in a second, and we'll give some hellos to folks in the chat, and maybe we can answer a question or two. But without further ado, I would like to introduce our good friend Jim Gaustad. Thanks, Jim, for coming on. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me, Rob. It's a pleasure. I was hoping I was going to get my cocaine and my vodka put away before we came on here, but
yeah,
well, as the story goes, vodka and blow keeps you right? There we go.
Yeah, yes, sir. Anyway. Well, cheers. Cheers to you, and
cheers to you.
I'll buy you a drink in California in a few weeks.
Fabulous. Looking forward to it.
Well, Jim, thanks for jumping on. Who do we got in the chat so far? We'll just we're going to have some fun tonight. We're just going to bounce through some questions. If you guys want to ask a few questions here and there, please do. I'll try to get to them. I can't guarantee we'll get to everybody's because I do have a pretty packed agenda here that we'd like to bounce
He's going to run me through the ringer. Come on, man.
Yeah, right. Kurt 5150, my good friend Kurt from Under the Bus Network. How you doing, buddy? Paul, how are you? Ben, Donald, Jeff, how are you guys doing? Headless USA, how you doing, Natalie? Thanks for jumping on. I'm really glad you had a chance to take some time and watch this, and thank you for sharing too. Andy Carson, Jerry Leica, how you doing, my friend? Who else we got? Advantage. There's some new people in here too. Crimson. I'm old, so if I get your name wrong, I'm 52 years old, so I have a hard enough time seeing when I'm driving, let alone reading all this stuff. Clayton James Hicks, how you doing? 09 Records, KXM Rock, Van Edge. How are you guys doing? Thanks for jumping in. M. Shepard. And if I miss anybody, I will do the best that I can. John Glagola, how are you doing? 870. Thanks for jumping on. R2R3. Thanks for jumping in. All right. Well, Jim, that's your studio, I would assume, huh?
Yeah, that's it. This is one view of it. I'm sitting behind the console here, and some of the guitar collection is here. The amp collection is, some of it is behind me there. That's what I create. Most of the stuff that the Van Halen stuff is all done back there with those amplifiers and speaker cabinets. So yeah, this is it. This is kind of where it all happens.
Looks like the ultimate man cave.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
And nobody comes in here. I have a long commute. The house is right across the driveway. So I've got, it's a long commute to work every morning.
Do you have a striped
bad weather and everything, and
Yeah, you got a striped golf cart like Ed had, and you would just drive down to 5150, or
I do not have a striped golf cart, but I've got one of those side-by-side things. I'm on a farm out here. I've got 20 acres out here, horse farm. So I got horses and all that stuff too. So yeah,
awesome.
it's a good life. I can't complain.
Yeah. My daughter would love to talk to you. She's 21. She's been riding horses, gosh, she used to compete. She did, the equestrian stuff, the dressage and the cross country and all that. She competed when she was younger. She started when she was 8 years old. And I think she kind of got done competing about maybe 5 years ago, I'd say. And now she just, she just has horses at her mom's house and, kind of just does the same thing. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's how I ended up out here when we first moved down to Nashville. My wife said, we need to find something for Ava to do. She was 8 years old at the time when we first moved here. And we, moved into a big subdivision and did the whole, and so long story, but I ended up doing what most dads do is my little girl wanted to ride a horse. So I bought a whole horse farm.
Yeah.
And now she's 20, 21. She doesn't ride anymore. So, that's also the typical ending to that. So here I'm left with the horses. So, but it is what it is.
My daughter, she's 21, doesn't ride anymore. And my ex-wife would come home and say, oh, hey, Dad, Rob, we got a new horse. Hey, Dad, check out the new horse. How much did that cost? $6,000. I'm like,
hey, I know. I had 18 of them at one time. So we were running a whole lesson program, the whole 100 jumper thing. We got the big 100 by 200 sand arena here. I'm a Wisconsin guy via Chicago, and I never rode a horse before, but I ended up owning 18 of them. So go figure. It's a strange world we live in.
Yeah, funny now how that works. Well, I guess I don't think everybody's here to hear us talk about horses, but you and I can pick that conversation up at another time because I'm sure you and I got a lot to chat about.
Absolutely.
But, let's just jump into the music part. How old were you when you really got into music and you started, playing music? I mean, was guitar your first instrument?
Well, actually, this is a funny story, and it actually was put into a local music newspaper when I was really a young guy. My brother and I were the only two kids, divorced family. We grew up really poor in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And I was really into music. We were all really into music. We would listen to the, Casey Kasem's Top 40 radio and all that sort of thing. And we'd participate in the radio contest. If you get spotted with a 2-liter bottle of Mountain Dew, we're going to give you tickets to some, if you're walking around. We did all that stuff. So, I mean, I'm 9 years old and we're listening to the radio. We're listening to our AM radio and listening to Elton John and Crocodile Rock. And that was 76, I think. But so I was 10 then, but, so at a very, very early age, and I joined a drum and bugle corps, and I wanted to because I loved their uniforms. They were the cavalry. They had the name of the thing was called the Cavalettes, and I loved the whole Union uniform kind of thing. I shouldn't say that too loud down here in Nashville, but I loved the whole Union uniform, and that's what drew me to them. And I brought my I was a drummer. I brought my tom-tom home. And my brother's 2 years older than me, and he kind of took it away from me and marched around our backyard. And I never got it back. And so he ended up being the drummer I grew up playing with, most of my life. And at some point, not that long after that, I was watching, it was probably Don Kirshner's rock concert or the Midnight Special. It was either one of those on a Saturday night. And I saw Rory Gallagher playing a guitar, and I said, I got to get a guitar. And that's where it started. So I was 9 at the time. And I begged my mom for a guitar. And like I said, we were poor. She went and put one on layaway, an acoustic guitar, an old Stella Harmony. I think it was $70. It took us 8 months to pay it off so I could bring it home kind of thing. Yeah. And that was the start of it all. And so I played the crap out of that acoustic guitar. It had action like this. So that's why I got a pretty good left hand, I think. But I don't know. But that's where it all started for me.
Did you take lessons, Jim, or was it just self-taught?
I took lessons for about 6 months, and I had call it a brother from a different mother, who was a couple years older than my brother and I, and he had this old National Les Paul copy of bolt-on neck, like the Ibanez bolt-on neck Les Paul copies of the era of the 70s. And he taught me how to play bar chords. So I took like 6 months of lessons of, finger exercises in the first position, and as they call them, the cowboy chords, the first position chords. So, and then I quit, and Mom was furious. I said, Mom, I'm not getting any more out of this. This isn't where I want to be. Mike, rest his soul, my brother from a different mother, he's passed. He had showed me he was a huge Ritchie Blackmore fan. So he was starting to show me some of the early Deep Purple stuff, and I was playing. So I'm 10 and 11 years old playing Deep Purple, Bring That Neck and all that stuff. So I mean, that's kind of where it came from. And from that point forward, it was, I was a young kid, so I loved Kiss. It was the 70s, and you had to love Kiss and all that stuff.
Sure.
But I mean, Aerosmith, I saw it, like my first concert was in 1977. It was Rush, Brownsville Station and Max Webster.
Wow, that was
remember Brownsville Station, Smoking in the Boys Room. That was so.
I was only 4 years old. I was only 4 then, but that's
So I started young, started really early. We were aware of it and playing, but no formal lessons, and just learning, listening to our favorite records. Foreigner, Styx was out. All of the Aerosmith, Ted Nugent, all of that stuff, Double Live Gonzo, all of those things. We'd figure out just what the doctor ordered. You drop the needle on the turntable and on the record. You want to hear that part again. I mean, we didn't have the YouTube and we barely even had cassette recorders. I mean, we had them, but even that wasn't a thing. It was 8 tracks at that point.
8 tracks. Yep.
And Queen was, we were listening to Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody was out, all that stuff. It was just Sheer Heart Attack, all Thin Lizzy, Strangers in the Night. Although that was probably a couple of years later with UFO, but Schenker and all that stuff, and Scorpions. Yep. So that's what I was weaned on, and we learned all of that stuff. And I had my first. I mean, we put a band together almost right away, my brother and I, and. That probably started when I was 10 to 11, something like that. And we played our first bar gig when I was 12, and it just kept snowballing from there. So we kept going. And
it's funny how, you look back and you think about it, you and I were chatting a little bit prior to going live about, a couple of things, we're around the same age, but we both got.
We look good for 37, don't we? Well, you look better. You look better than I do, but I
just turned 29. What are you talking about?
Okay, all right. Sorry,
I know.
Try not to pull one over on everybody, but
it's funny. I've always really admired folks that got into something when they were really, really young. For me, that was martial arts and different things, but the funny thing was the late 70s, early 80s, I remember 1981, 82, hearing, Unchained and some of the stuff off Diver Down. And, at that time, that's when, remember the old TV show on Tuesday night at 8:00, the A-Team?
Oh, yeah.
Mr. T and Hannibal Smith. I mean, that was my Tuesday night. I'd go to elementary school and I'd watch the A-Team on Tuesday nights with my dad. And, and then you're exposed to Daryl Hall and John Oates on the bus. You're exposed to Van Halen. You're exposed to Men at Work, Rod Stewart. And, I remember my mom mostly listening to a lot of that music and going, wow, this is just crazy. And I remember hearing, didn't really pay too much attention to it until like probably 84 when Jump came out, and then Hot for Teacher, Jump, Panama. And I was just like, whoa, this is crazy. I'm 11 years old at the time. Right. And I always wanted to play guitar, but I never got around to it. I always wanted to play electric guitar. was fascinated by it, but I always had other stuff going on. So, for me and a lot of people watching the show, they know I didn't get into playing guitar until I was, 23 years old. And I finally said, that's it. I saw Ed, Van Halen on the Balance tour. And I was like, that's it. I'm doing this. This is freaking insane. My buddy and I had great seats. And I started playing, and I took lessons for a year. And all I wanted to do was just show me the cowboy chord, show me this, show me that. So I never learned how to read, but I figured out how to play, and I figured out how to play by ear, and just boom, there it went. So it's funny, it's amazing. Have you ever taught? Have you ever?
I did, yeah. So in between, like you said, you and I were talking earlier. So I did the national touring act through the middle to late 80s into early 91, and I mentioned I took a year off. When I took that year off, I went to go sell retail guitars at a music store called Good and Loud Music up in Madison, Wisconsin. And so while I was selling retail, you couldn't make any money at that. I was teaching on Saturday mornings. I tell you, I would come in from gigs on Friday night, and that sort of thing, when I would be sitting in, filling in with people, and we were younger then. And I'd probably stink like a euro and whiskey. But I got to tell you, I mean, the youngsters and their young moms were pretty into me at that point.
Yeah, for sure.
As ridiculously stupid as that sounds, but yeah, I used to have a good time teaching. I had this whole group of young guys that would come in, and a couple of young girls that wanted to learn how to play. And I remember a quote as I was showing, they would bring these songs in, that they wanted to learn, and it was the beginning of the grunge year. So it was the Seattle sound, and I'd warm up and I'd play some stuff, and they'd go. The one kid said, "I am so glad I didn't come up in the 80s. You really had to play then, didn't you?"
Yeah, for sure.
And I said, "Yeah, kind of. You really did. You had to have your chops down." So anyway, but I digress. So I did teach, and I got myself into this. I did the whole music theory trip for a long time. I bought this, or my father bought it for me, this big, thick book by Bruce Benward, who used to teach at the UW-Madison. He's like the music theory guru in the music circles. And my dad said if I could get through that book and play him a classical piece, that he would buy me a new electric guitar.
Wow.
And that turned out to be my first kind of real electric guitar. So I taught myself theory. I mean, I'm kind of bouncing around back and forth, but so before I started teaching, I had already done that whole theory thing. That's when I was even younger, before I had been out on the road and all that stuff. Because I had real guitars when I was out on the road, obviously. But so it's that whole theory thing in teaching. I always like to joke about it. I couldn't play a solo for 3 years after I went through the theory crap. Mixolydian, Phrygian, Dorian, where am I here? And am I doing the right thing? And I couldn't get out of my own head. So I just eventually just threw all that stuff out and just played. Just let it rip, let it just flow. And that it took a long time, because it truly did screw me up for years. I couldn't play.
Now let me ask you this. I mean, you went through that phase, which I think was, obviously was part of your what do you want to call it, heritage, or your upbringing and your past, of course, your history. But did you kind of just like intentionally try to forget all that? Did that come back and haunt you at all? Like at all, when you were just like, all right, I'm just going to play. I just want to play my feet.
I did. I got so frustrated because I was always a seat of the pants kind of player, and I still am to this day. And I just wanted to let it rip. When I was a really young guy and we were playing those early cover tunes, I used to kind of lie to everybody, and they'd say, "Well, how come you're not playing the lead off the record?" And I'd say, "Well, because I want to do my own thing." No, it was because I couldn't figure it out. I wasn't good enough to play it.
Right.
But I was always kind of telling stories and trying to get better at my craft. And when I tried to get better at my craft and learn all that theory, because I thought that's where it was, it really screwed me up. It screwed up all the things I already had going. So I had to figure out how to divorce myself. And I've retained a bunch of it, but I mean, I had to get it out of my head so I could go back and just play what I hear, because
Yeah.
I'm an ear player. I love to play what I hear, and I can repeat things. And one of my better qualities as a musician is my ears. So I'm good at it. I'm good at that part of it.
That's amazing. That's interesting hearing you talk, because so much of what you're saying reminds me of Ed, you know, from your brother taking the drums, and and then you said you had that you had all that theory, and all of a sudden you're just trying to push it away. And I remember Ed at one point, well, many points. I mean, I'm sure you've heard this numerous times too. Saying over the years, I never really had lessons. And if I had lessons, I wouldn't do all the funny stuff that I do, and it's interesting because, the guy that taught me lessons for the first, I took lessons for, like I said, for a year. And I, learned all the Mary Had a Little Lamb stuff and a little bit of theory here and there. Never learned how to read music. But I remember he said to me, he goes, you learn how to read music, and he could read music. But I said, I just want to learn how to play. Show me the chords, show me what to do, show me the technique, and I'll figure it out from there. Because I was always kind of the same way. I would hear something and I would figure it out. And I always wanted to be able to pick up an instrument, the guitar in my case, because that's pretty much the only one I played, and be able to just improvise and just kind of play along, and I still work at that today, and I'm not really where I want to be as far as that's concerned. But I remember thinking to myself, he said something to me, and he was like, learning how to read music is great, but all that really does is teaches you how to play other people's music. And of course, as you know, Ed never, well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, all the studying I've done on Ed, I'm sure Ed knew how to read music when he was younger, or had a part of it, but probably forgot it. He would let the tape roll and just play.
Right. Well, I know how to read music too, but I suck at it. You can put a piece of sheet music in front of me, and I got to go, all right, so that's, I carry the one, it's over here. Well, wait a minute, I missed, what key are we in? Circle of fifths. Oh God, here we go. So it's I can do it, but I'd rather just put press play and figure it out.
Right.
Play, pause, listen to it and figure out. Because there's so much that has to do with the timbre of where it's played also. There's the position on the neck where you play it, playing it the correct way. If you're trying to play it just like, what you're working on. So it's because, as there's a gazillion places you can play the same note on a guitar.
Sure.
So
what's Ed? Yeah, totally. And Ed's one of Ed's favorite quotes is, "You get 12 notes, just do whatever you want." It's funny. I always wondered if, Alex said many times, he could read music. But Ed always said he didn't. But there's some interviews with him and Steve Rosen back, stuff they've been putting out, where, Ed said he could read. But I think you're right. I think it's probably was one of those things where, I could do it if I sat down. But it really didn't, it was too much work to put this here and this here, and okay, I got to think about this. That wasn't how he wrote music.
No, and there's a huge difference between being able to sight read proficiently and being able to read. Huge difference.
Sure.
When you watch somebody that can sight read, like piano players, so there's just some terrific. I used to work with a keyboard player in one of my bands. He was a music theory major, and he was amazing what he would do, his chord theory and everything. And I learned a lot from him too, just writing music with him. So, I mean, it comes from all sides. I just wouldn't get hung up on anything. Everybody's got to kind of do what works for them. Really.
Yeah. Yep. Totally agree. Well, so I guess the next question I would have for you is, and I think I heard you talk about this in somebody else's interview, because I know a lot of folks have been interviewing you lately, and I'm glad I get to be one of them. But do you remember the first time you heard Van Halen, and how did that change? Were you like, holy shit, I got to go fucking learn this now? Like, what is this?
Yes. So yeah, the story goes, so my brother from a different mother, the guy who was teaching me Deep Purple licks, we were all from broken homes and everything, and we would go over to his mom's house for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And So it's Thanksgiving 1978, and he, like I said, he was a couple years older than us. And it's my brother John and myself and Mike, and he just says, "Hey, you got to hear this. We've been listening to some other stuff." He was one of those guys that would go and buy the new releases as they came out at the rock music or the record store.
Yeah.
So, you know, Van Halen was probably on the end cap, Van Halen 1. So he goes and buys the album, and he pulls out this album out of the record collection, and he hands me the cover, and he goes, "You got to hear this." So he just puts it on side one, Running with the Devil.
Yeah.
And it was mind blowing.
Yeah.
Just Running with the Devil was mind blowing. Just
sure.
the sound of the guitar, because what did we have back then? We had Ted Nugent, we had Gary Richrath, REO, the guys in Thin Lizzy,
a little bit of Aerosmith,
and Aerosmith, but none of that stuff sounded like what came off that turntable. And then of course we all know where it goes from Running with the Devil. It goes into Eruption, and we were like, I mean,
what is going on here? Yeah.
Right. And so, I'd already been playing guitar for like 3 years at that point. And it was like, you couldn't even figure out what the hell that was. And I remember reading the guitar magazines at the time. They were saying, well, it's probably one of these new guitar synthesizers that he's using, because and we're going, so fast forward about, I don't know, 6 months, something like that. It was before I saw him live, because I saw him live in '79, in the summer of '79.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting in my bedroom with that Stella Harmony acoustic guitar with the action like this.
Yeah.
And my mom comes in to irritate me about something. I'm trying to play guitar, Mom, for God's sake.
Go away. Yeah.
So she's giving me this list of what she wants me to do or something. And I'm frustrated, and I got my hand draped over the top of the fingerboard, my left hand, and I just got my hand kind of across my lap onto the, hanging on. It's an acoustic, so hanging my shoulder on, or my arm hanging over the guitar, and I'm just listening to her, and I'm just kind of nervously drumming on the fingerboard, and I happened to hit a couple of notes, and I went, "Holy crap, that's it. So it kind of came to me that way, and it took me a while to get to all this, but that whole tapping thing, that's where it came from. And I thought, oh my God, that's how he's doing it. So the light bulb went off. And then I saw him on the first world tour in '79 at Madison, Wisconsin, which was, if you look at the back of the second album, it says "Special Thanks, 7th Floor, Sheraton Inn, Madison, Wisconsin."
Yeah.
There's a whole story about that. And I know all the backstory. I won't bore you with it, but that was their first world tour, their headlining world tour, and it was talk about mind blowing and game changing. So I got to see him on the '79 tour. Super cool.
That's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
It's amazing. You probably think back when, and I mean, it's not just playing guitar. I mean, I can think about, a bunch of different things. When you're just kind of sitting around, bumbling around, on a Saturday or whatever, you're just doing your own thing, and you're like, you just fall on something. You're like, whoa, that's it. Holy shit, where'd that come from? The light bulb goes off,
Yep. And that's usually when the magic happens, when you're trying too hard, or you're in your own head. That's like, back to the music theory discussion. It's like, when you're that far into your own head, the creativity doesn't flow, and the mind doesn't work right. You're tensed up, and you're trying to figure stuff out. But when you just relax and let things happen, and if you've been playing long enough, and you're confident in your craft, you're confident in what you hear and what your brain is thinking, and you can translate that to your fingers. Forget all that nonsense. Just play. Just play what you hear and feel. So
totally. And I mean, you think about the times that in the Van Halen interviews, when Alex and Ed would say, Al would go out and go on a date, and I just sit in my room till 3 a.m. and just play guitar. Those were probably the times that all that stuff started to come. And I remember the first time I heard Van Halen 1. And I'm listening to the solos of "On Fire" and "I'm the One." I'm like, this is fucking incredible. Like, I've never heard guitar like this. You know, I mean,
I know.
The eruption piece, of course, you know, by the time I really, you know, started to pay attention, everybody kind of figured out there was this tapping thing. But, you know, what got me was, I mean, that was incredible, but just the incredible fast soloing. How can anybody pick notes that fast? And then
let me stop you for a second though, because what you didn't hear, I was already exposed to the super fast, you know, the Mahavishnu Orchestra, McLaughlin, and then there was Al Di Meola was out there with Elegant Gypsy and Friday Night. Well, maybe Friday Night in San Francisco came out later, but you listen to Di Meola play that stuff, and you went, he's still the fastest guy out there, whether that means anything. But so I wasn't not used to hearing fast playing. What I wasn't used to hearing was how it was played.
Right.
When Eruption came on and the tapping, well, even before the tapping sequence, it was like just the sound of it all. I mean, it was end of the world. It was huge. And, you know, and we had, you know, I was always playing Marshall amps. Probably my first gig, I borrowed a 212 Marshall 50-watt combo.
Yeah.
So I had always been pretty much playing and familiar with them in the non-master ones too. So they were super loud because the master volumes weren't really out, or they were just starting to come out in 77, 78-ish. So to hear that, just the sound of that guitar, you know, and the huge, you know, the reverb, you know, it was right and left, but, you know, the guitar was pan left, but I mean, so it sounded like, what are we hearing here? This is amazing. And then the slow sweeping phase 90 going on, and I mean, it was just the coolest thing. And it never heard anything like that. So I don't mean to jump all over your story because everybody's got their experience, but
this is great.
But to me, being aware of all of the guitar playing back then, or a lot of the guitar playing back then, and some of the jazz players, and, you know, like Pat Metheny and McLaughlin, like I said, those guys were fast and they were good, you know, and Larry Carlton, all those guys, but nothing sounded like that. Nothing came off that way. And that's what was so cool about it.
100%. I remember for me, you know, Running with the Devil and, you know, I'm the One and On Fire, Eruption, all that. The one song I can honestly say for me, and it's probably one of the simplest Van Halen songs to play, that just got me and grabbed me, was Ain't Talking About Love. To this day, that is my favorite Van Halen song. It's a pretty simple riff, but as you know, the muting in the opening, you know, in the intro was just, it was just, you know, the choice of notes, the technique. I think a lot of it had to do, you know, he's holding the pick this way, you know, with the thumb and the middle finger and all that. I know Diesel Zappa talked a lot about that, but you know, I was like, wow, this is just incredible. And the whammy technique. And that's the song that just got me. And I'm like, this is incredible. And nothing ever really sounded like that to me. And then, you know, from that point on, I was just, you know, I was just taken away. And, you know, and then I started paying attention to, you know, a lot of the different albums. You know, like I said, 1984 was the album that really got me at 11 years old. Then I kind of went back a little bit, you know, and paid attention. I'm like, oh, I remember that song. You know, whoa, this is Van Halen. There's a question in the chat too. Who is this? Let's see. I should probably just jump in here. Boy, this chat's blowing up.
Because we can do this for hours. Trust me.
Oh, I know. Where is it? Somebody asked about tablature. Is it okay to learn songs with tabs, especially EVH? What's your answer on that, Jim?
I think it's a good starting point. Tabs weren't around really. I mean, that was invented long after I started playing, kind of thing, where it came into what it is now.
Yeah.
I think learn your instrument, learn the different, like I said earlier, the timbre of the positions that you play things.
Yeah.
And if it's too complicated where you're playing it, that's probably not where they played it.
Right.
you know, and so use your ears, use your tabs I mean, I look at a lot of tabs. I mean, there's one of the best tab guys out there, Alan Garber. We all know Alan. We all know Alan.
He's a great friend, great guy.
Alan's tabs are spot on. So when I get hung up, he'll see one of my videos, and he always slags me. He goes, "You're playing that wrong," you know. It's like, and this is why I always put the disclaimer in. And I get slagged on putting the disclaimer. You don't need to put the disclaimer in. Yeah, I do, because I get nailed by all the ad heads that say, "Oh, you're playing that wrong." I don't learn the songs. I just play what I hear. And But anyway, so if I really get stumped, I'll reach out to Alan and say, "Hey, you got what's going on right here in this part? How is he playing that? Have you figured that one out?" So every now and then I'll cheat and do that. But no, I think the best thing you can do for yourself as a player is to listen to it and try to translate that to your hands from what you hear. That's the best way to do it.
I don't think anybody could say that any better than you just did. And I'll say, you know, what's funny is when I also play by ear, because I don't read music. I got a little bit of theory, and I mean, I can hear something and say, okay, here's where it is on guitar, and I'll put it together. What's interesting is if I go to a tab, it's usually for another artist, not Van Halen, you know, because I'm lazy and I don't want to take the time. But with Van Halen, I mean, you know, I mean, and I mean the most respect about it. I mean, he's my favorite guitar player ever. He pretty much, he was a shapes player. He did the same thing over and over again. Panama, Unchained, Dance the Night Away, all the same chords, just mixed up a little bit different. Yep. The tapping stuff, it's all, again, I want to be so careful how I say this. Everything he did was just repetitive, just in different ways, so many times. If you go back to the early stuff versus, you know, I mean, you just put out the 5150, you know, video which I thought was incredible. We'll get into that a little bit. I remember, speaking of Alan, you know, Alan's such a great guy. I've known him for many, many years. I remember I was trying to figure, to this day, Hang 'Em High, the opening riff.
Right.
I have my good days and my bad days. You know, some days I can play it good, and other days I'm like, oh my gosh, I put the guitar down. And I remember one day I looked at something in the tab. I'm like, this isn't right at all. And I sent a video. I think I sent a video to Alan or whatever. He saw one of my videos play, and he writes back, "Rob, that's how you do it." And he goes, "Because I've studied this." I'm like, great. Because so first time my ears actually, you know, I figured it out without tablature. Right. And I see so many tabs that are just way off from what, you know.
Always, that's what I mean. Always trust your ears. Trust your ears and learn your guitar. Learn how it sounds in all of the different positions through your amplifier, through your pedals, whatever you're playing through. Learn how it sounds, and you'll immediately start to recognize that, or eventually you'll start to recognize, oh, well, he's playing that on the G string, he's playing that on the D string, such and such a position, or whatever, just by the warmth of it, or the brightness of it, the shrillness of it. And you just kind of figure all that stuff out, and it's huge.
Would you say that when you play Eddie's stuff, you know, I mean, a lot of, like, you know, the run where he goes up the neck on Spanish Fly, you know, some of the stuff that he does in I'm the One, the intro to Fools, you know, which I started replaying, and I was like, wow, that's incredible. I mean, you nailed it. Would you say that you, in your opinion, do you play it exactly the same way Ed did as far as some of the hammer-ons and the picking? Because Ed, as you know, Ed did not, a lot of people think he picked everything. He didn't. A lot of stuff he didn't pick. Do you feel that you do the same thing as he did? Or similar?
I kind of do, and I think that's why I get away with cheating so much. Because when I do these videos, like all of this ToneX stuff I've been doing in the past year, and some of the or all of the Brown Sound videos that I did leading up to the ToneX thing, I've never learned, well, I shouldn't say I've never, because I haven't really learned the stuff note for note, and I don't punish myself. What I've always tried to do is cop the feel. I've tried to cop that you know, Ed always played behind the beat a little bit. It's the swing feel. It's everything. And, you know, I grew up, I love Sinatra. You know, swing, baby, swing, you know, I love that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, I love that. To me, that's what it's, learn the feel, learn the rhythms, because he was a much better rhythm player in my mind than he was a lead player. And this, if you're playing the actual songs correctly and copping the right feel, and you're playing in the pocket, there's a certain magic to that. And you can, you know, he played it different all the time too. I mean, you can see live videos where he's playing in different positions. He's playing completely different parts. So the way they recorded, the way they tracked those albums, was it rehearsed? Absolutely. Were they just coming off a tour where they were the tightest, you know, 3-piece band in the world? Absolutely. They just got done playing 160 dates, you know, coked out of their brains and drunk as can be. That stuff becomes so automatic in your back pocket. And they were writing songs and rehearsing those in sound check, and then going into the studio and playing it live. So that was just a moment in time that it was captured. The album versions that we all sit here and agonize over, you know, oh, I got to play this line just perfectly, otherwise it's not. Nah, just cop the feel. Don't cheat your way through it, but cop the feel and do it, and just, you know, and do what you got to do. And I think that's the magic of Van Halen, and that's the way I approach it.
100%. And it's funny because, you know, to go back to Alan, because he is such a purist, he is spot on. You know, it's funny when I play something, you know, and it's so true. I mean, you listen to Ed on the albums and you listen to him live. I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bootlegs, you know, some soundboards, some not. I mean, YouTube's everything, but I've been collecting them since the, you know, the early 90s. And you listen to Ed play, specifically when he solos. I mean, the main riffs, of course, he's doing pretty much the same each time, but he does everything different. I mean, some solos don't even sound like, you know, I was listening to it the other day from 1988 in the Monsters of Rock tour, and the song When It's Love, and did a completely different solo for the song. And, you know, so it's funny because I kind of joke with myself, and here's the cheating piece. I'll say, you know, Alan's really good. Him and I are close friends, but well, that's not how he did it. I'm like, well, it doesn't matter because he did it like this in this live show or whatever, because that's my way of cheating. I can't do it that way, so I have to do it this way. And it's just funny because I think it's great to have folks like Alan who pinpoint stuff like that. Because if you're looking for actual factual information and you want to find that, that's where it is. But if you kind of want to, you know, as Ed used to say, stray from the melody a little bit, or just kind of improvise and get that feel, get that swing, you know, I find as I get older, some days, I want to learn that solo exactly like what it was. Okay, great. But oh shit, I can actually kind of noodle up here and it sounds cool too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'll put out one of my videos or something, and a couple days later I'll get a Facebook Messenger with the tab for what I just fucked up. But I love him. I mean, I love him. He and I have great conversations, and I so respect what he does. Me too. It goes back to that when I was a kid, what I said earlier too about, you know, I used to lie about it. Why aren't you playing that lead note for note? Because I want to play my own thing. You know, so it's kind of a carrying out of that tradition. Plus, I'm a writer, you know, and I did the whole original thing, and I still write music, and I still do all that stuff. So I'm already sucked into that Ed style. I mean, I can't escape it. It is what it is. It just kind of it is. I just kind of do that naturally. So I don't need to make it worse by learning everything note for note. But seriously, if you're really trying to learn the feel, at some point, take a couple of them and really learn it, and again, get the swing, get the right hand, because it's not Van Halen's not the left hand. Van Halen is all right hand. That's how you get the sound. That's exactly how it's done. I mean, the left hand is everybody is pretty much equal. I mean, he does some cool things for sure, but it's all about the attack, the angle at which it's done. But don't overthink it. Just try to create those sounds as you're playing. And that's where the magic comes from, in my opinion, anyway.
No, I agree. And to this day, I still watch videos, your videos. I watch, folks online. I'm like, oh shit. Okay. Wow. I didn't see that. Okay. That's cool. I'm like, oh, there it is. So I think that's for me as a guitar player, not a professional guitar player, more of a hobby guitar player, a collector and all that stuff. The biggest thing for me is I want to have fun. I want to have a good time. I want to enjoy it. A lot of I don't get caught up on the online drama about the Van Halen. I just, I don't have to. I'm too old.
Right.
B, I don't care.
Right.
C, I know what I like, and in D, I just want to have fun. So, it's funny, but I still feel like a kid in a candy store when I see a picture of something that, that's just this unreleased picture of Ed or a guitar, or I see something online, this riff I've been thinking about for years, but I never really had time to sit down and figure it out. I'm like, whoa, I feel like a kid on Christmas morning. I'm like, there it is. It's so much. It's still fun to be a Van Halen fan,
It is. I mean, when I've been going through all this ToneX stuff, creating these Brown Sound packs, I've learned a bunch. I mean, I've played this rig, the same rig that Ed played, my rig, whatever. I've been playing it for years. I mean, I grew up that way with super lead 4-hole Marshalls, and you're always trying to figure out a way to cut the volume on them. And so I always kind of knew what Ed was up to with all that and where the tone was coming from, because I was experimenting with dummy loads and I was doing every different thing and foam in the speaker cabinets. And, I even wired a little rheostat, a wall dimmer on the back of the amp to try to see if I did that back in the 70s.
Yeah.
And I blew the circuits in the house and that didn't work, that we were rehearsing at. So anything to figure that out is just, everybody gets too caught up in this is rote, this is what it's supposed to be, this is, and I think people lose sight of what the magic is. The magic is the discovery of it all, and you learn things along the way, and you go, oh, when I'm creating these things, I'll go, why am I not getting the sound? Why am I not? Because I'm trying to deliver the album tones. I'm not trying to deliver an amp capture. I'm trying to deliver an album sound. So I have to process it, because the amp doesn't sound like that.
Yeah. Right.
They EQ'd it in the studio. They EQ'd it going to tape. They EQ'd it coming back to mix it down to the 2-track,
Yeah.
So there's things that go on. There's miking techniques. There's things that have been talked about, that we've all read in the magazines and everything, that you go, no, that probably couldn't be right, because I've tested every one of those theories. And I think that's all just folklore. That's not true, because there's no way you can get the amp to do what you're hearing it's going to do. So again, you discover things all the time along the way. And it's always this, oh, that's cool. I mean, I like that. I'm glad that I figured that out. And you go,
Yeah.
And it's like the light bulb goes off. You go, man, that's so cool. So I don't know. There's always magic in it to me. And that's the beauty of what we do when we're chasing this. Am I a super fan? Yeah, probably. But to me, it's about the challenge. It's about the challenge of figuring it out. What the hell did he do there? What the hell was that? That's the cool thing to me.
Yeah. And, we're going to get into the ToneX stuff in a few minutes, because I have some specific questions. And I know there's a bunch of folks watching that. I don't know if you can see the comments, but if there's a ton of comments, and guys,
if they're calling me an asshole, it's well deserved, but that's all good.
I'm editing all that. But no, there's so many comments, and guys, this show was highly anticipated, so I really apologize if I don't get to all your comments. I will try to go back, and Jim will too. In the YouTube video, because it will be historical, and we can answer some of them if I miss anything. But somebody mentioned, the way Ed held the pick had a lot to do with the muting and everything. And I agree, but I have tried for years to hold the pick that way, and I can't. I can do it, but I just don't. It just doesn't work for me.
You know what? I do it I find myself doing it more and more. Like I can't play loss of control without, because you can't get the right tone on that muted E.
Yeah.
Because you can't get far enough back over the pickup unless you're using these two.
Yeah.
It's so there's certain little subtle things I find, and I've been doing this forever. So
yeah. Me too. Me as well.
I switch back and forth. It's almost automatic now. So you just play with it and you do it. It's got to become automatic. Again, if you overthink something, just let it happen is what it comes down to. You got to work on the technique.
Yeah.
But at some point you just have to let the things happen. Let it flow.
Totally. And it's funny because, I finally I just dropped my pick, of course. Figures. Years ago, I would, when I would tap and I'd be picking and everything, I would tap with the middle finger, and it worked.
No.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's like you leave now. You're not doing that.
Yeah, exactly. And my buddy's like, that's not the way Ed does it. So now when I tap, I fold it under, this finger and I tap that way. Yeah. But it's funny because, and I want to do it that way, but I see so many guys on YouTube, incredible guitarists that do it with that middle finger. And it made me think, and I don't ever want to go back to doing it, but it made me think, like, that's not the way Ed did it. That's not the way Ed did it. But I could turn that right around and go, well, fuck you, because Ed didn't do anything the way anybody else did it. He did it what worked for him. So how can you say that's wrong? Okay, like he didn't want to read a Mel Bay book or do this. He can't do it that way. So he did it this way and it worked great. But it always kind of amused me. And of course, being the purist, I want to do it the way Ed did. But it always made me laugh when people are like, oh, Ed didn't do it. Ed didn't do it. Well, Ed didn't do anything the way anybody else did.
Right.
Which is interesting. But at the same time, us being the fans, us wanting to recreate this stuff, it makes us kind of go, okay, how did he do that? And it's like, for me, it's like a lifelong mission. Jim, I'm telling you, it took me probably 12 to 15 years to finally get around to being able to tuck that pick in here and tap on this finger. And it was about 5-6 years ago I finally started doing it.
I believe it. Yeah, I mean, that was something that was kind of instinctual and natural way back when you were trying to, well, what am I going to do with this? I can't grab a new pick every time. So where am I going to hide it? It was just kind of instinctual. My big dog is pounding at the door. He wants to come in. I'm going to let him in.
Hey, can you let the dog in and introduce him? I'm going to just hit the head real quick and I'll be back in 2 minutes.
Absolutely. Come on.
Does that work for you? I'll be right back.
Here. Come on, Huckleberry. Come on, buddy. Come on. This is my coyote killer. This is Huck. He's a Kangal Anatolian Shepherd. I wish I could see the chats. I can't see him. And I'm looking at my red face. I got windburn today. I don't know what the hell I did to myself. I look like a tomato. Anyway, so what do you think, Huck? You want to say anything to the people out there? No, buddy? You like Van Halen too, bud? That's right, buddy. That's right. Huckleberry Hound. Guys, it's too bad I can't see the chat, guys. You gonna stay here for the rest of this? Yeah. Everybody got a potty break? Come on. This is what they say is live television.
Okay, Jim, I think it's time for a dog break.
All right.
I meet the dogs here. I just ran up and grabbed my little guy. Okay, you go first. Who do you got there?
This is Huck. Huckleberry. We used to have, he's a farm dog. He's a livestock guard dog, and he's a Kangal Anatolian Shepherd.
What a beautiful boy he is.
So his job is to get coyotes. That's what he does.
Yeah. How old is he?
He's just turned 2. He's about 125 pounds.
Nice.
And his name is Huck because his predecessor was named Finn.
Yeah.
So we lost Finn.
Oh.
Hey, Huck, buddy.
Look at his tail. Wow, what a beautiful dog.
Yeah, so he's a big boy.
I grew up with German Shepherds and Labs, and never had a little dog. And anybody who's watching probably knows who this little guy is. But he's about maybe back in 2017. An ex-girlfriend of mine who I was dating, a Russian lady, was found this 4-week-old dog, and I'm like, get a real dog, come on. And of course, we broke up a couple of years later, and this is Barney. He thinks he's a big dog. Well, he wants to.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Say hi, buddy. So
they all think they're big dogs, but Huck thinks he's a lap dog.
We lost one of our dogs, a bigger dog, back about a year ago. It was a pretty bad Sunday afternoon. We came downstairs, and she was only 4. Stella, it's gone.
Wow.
I don't know where I walked down. That was awful.
Yeah, it's tragic. I know. We've lost. It's been a rough year for us around here too. But are you done with me in here, buddy? You want to go back outside?
What do you think, Huff? You like to hear Dad play guitar?
Buddy, no, out you go. You're gonna stay? All right, I'm leaving the door open for
you. You're gonna hang out for a little while. All right, I guess we'll get into the guitars. When did you start wanting to collect Van Halen guitars, and when? Okay, so you got into playing Van Halen music and figuring stuff out. Do you remember your first Van Halen style guitar? Did you start painting them yourself? Did you start?
Well, yeah. So it's different than that. So for me, this was the guitar it's call it Van Halen inspired.
Well, I love it.
This is the guitar I toured with and recorded my first big album with.
Wow, that is.
See, it says "Shit happens when you party naked." You know,
I love it, Jim.
I got these at truck stops while we were on the road. Party animal needs mate, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So this was. In a lot of ways, I was always like, I'm a tinkerer. I've always been a tinkerer. So
yeah.
This was a Fernandez. Back, I bought this in probably 80, 81.
Wow.
I had ordered the Ritchie Blackmore model, scallop fingerboard, rosewood.
Yeah.
It didn't make it through customs. Fender got the injunction on it, and they sliced all the headstocks off. So this was just a Fender Strat or a Fernandez Strat sitting on the shelf at the music store. And they said, that's all you're going to get. And Fernandez was making great instruments back then.
Yeah.
But the only thing left is the Fernandez. And I had a buddy of mine filled the extra 2 pickup holes with wood and the cavity. So it's rear loaded.
Yeah.
And so this was the one that I played all through the 80s.
Wow.
And my Steinberger too. I got that, and I got the Steinberger and what's the model that was like the Vito Bratta model with the strat shape?
The GM model, I believe.
So that's what I had with the Trans Trem. These two could, like that one, except 2 singles in it. So the humbucker and 2 singles. Yep. So this guitar and that Steinberger is pretty much what I toured with and recorded with for all of those years, into the 90s. I didn't do official Van Halen paint jobs on any guitars until I got talked into a Van Halen tribute act in somewhere around 2009, 2010. That's kind of when I came back out of retirement. My neighbor in Chicago was a marketing director for a bar called Reggie's, a club called Reggie's in Chicago. Great club. And they used to do the third Thursday of every month, they would do a thing called Classic Albums Live. And a band would come in and play an album front to back, and that would be the whole set. And they'd group 2 or 3 of these bands together. And this guy, my neighbor, he'd seen me play guitar and everything. He goes, we do this thing, Classic Albums Live. And he explained it to me. And I said, yeah, that sounds kind of fun. That's pretty cool. And so he booked me. I didn't have a band. And he booked me to play Van Halen 1 for Classic Albums Live. Yeah. So this was spring. So this was spring of that year. And he booked the date for October. So I called my brother and I said, hey, I got this gig. And he goes, what? We haven't played a gig for a few years. And I said, I got this gig. And so I explained it to him. He goes, yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Let me talk to Daryl, who's our bass player. Yeah. And so Daryl said, yeah, anything Jim wants to do, I'm all in. Let's do it. Let's get it together. So that was the start of this whole Van Halen thing for me. I had been doing covers, originals, and all that stuff up until that point. And the only thing I had was this that resembled a Van Halen guitar was this one. Yeah, that is a cool guitar. So, and that thing's had probably 40 necks on it. No exaggeration. I've done everything to that guitar. And then, so in fact, I played that first gig at Reggie's with this guitar, and there's video up of it on the internet. I have to check that out. I want to check that out. And then further on down the road, I started saying, I should probably do the whole painted guitar thing. This was, again, it was 2010, 2011, and all these Van Halen tribute acts weren't really a thing yet. Yeah. And so, our whole thing was, we're going to do this, and we're going to do it with the same gear that they used. Yep. So no amp modelers, none of this stuff. Marshall Super Leads, wide open on stage, kind of thing, with the Variac and all that stuff. Bass player was using 3 SVT cabinets with an SVT top. I mean, it was the real deal, and that was our thing. So I said, you know what? I should probably paint one up to make it look like Ed. So this was the first one that I did. Yeah. Now that guitar, Jim, is funny because the guitar that you just had when you bought an 80, that is incredibly close to that guitar, the VH1. It has that VH1, one pickup, right, pick guard, and the Fender bridge, the one knob, that's in the black and the white. That's super cool, by the way. Yeah, so this is the one and this is all Musicraft. Yeah. So I got the Northern Ash body from Musicraft. It's a real Fender vintage bridge on here. You painted that yourself? What's that? Did you paint that yourself? Yeah, I did, because it's all coming off. See? Well, no, that's perfect. How did you learn how to do it? This is real relicking. This is gigs being played with it. Yeah, it's perfect. Did you figure that out on the internet? How did you figure out how to do the striping? I mean, at the time. Yeah. I just looked at the stripes on the album and all that stuff. So yeah, that's what it is. So that snowballed into this one probably. Yeah. So this is also Musicraft. Same. I bought those bodies. I bought the 2 bodies at the same time. So they're Musicraft. Oh, really? Northern Ash bodies. This is a Donnie Ward neck. This is about the 10th neck I've had on this one. So Donnie made this one for me. Donnie's a neck. Good friend. Friend. Yeah. So that's a Donnie neck. And of course, this now has the new GFW 80 in it. Oh yeah. Yep. The pickup the spec'd out pickup that I had the professor up in Canada make for me. Yep. So that's kind of what started it. Then came this one,
Sure.
which is it's an Epiphone.
Yep. Oh yeah.
And if you look really close, it's the stealth one. There's still a Roman numeral 12 at the 12th fret. I don't know if you can see it or not.
Oh yeah. Oh, I do now. I can see it with the yeah.
So I put the dots in. I drilled the holes and put the dots in the fingerboard, and I cut it all out and put the turnbuckles in it,
Yep.
and did the paint job and all that stuff. So
you did all these yourself, Jim. That's amazing.
Yeah, I did all of them myself. And of course, then came the Bumblebee.
Yeah. You got to have the B.
And this one is not correct because it doesn't have the right route for the control cavity. But this is also a Northern Ash body, Musicraft neck.
Yep.
Bird's eye maple. This is my 76 DiMarzio Super Distortion with a short A5 Allen-Nickel 5 Measurement in it.
I saw a video you did with that. Well, I saw videos you've done with a lot of those guitars, and I know you changed the pups out on that a few times to get the sound you were looking for.
Yeah, I did that, and then of course here's the 5150.
Yep.
Which is, I think this is a lock. I can't remember. This is Musicraft. This is lock.
Yep. That's like my 5150. It's a Musicraft neck and a lock body. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's it is what it is. I've got the JB Antiquity in it.
Yeah.
But I've got the mod in the but there's a whole funny story about that thing going on. The truth will come out sooner than later. But I've got my pickup guy doing the analysis of the broken coil thing. So he just got a couple of prototypes shipped to him this week, as a matter of fact. So he's going to be picking those all apart and figuring out where that all goes.
Nice. I know Pariah did. All my guitars are in the next room, but whatever. But I know that was my B. But that I know they did the PS6, the PS86, I think it is PS86, and there was another one they just came out with, I think, a few months back, that were supposed to have that broken coil type, personality to it. It's funny, I tell you that 5150 guitar, in my opinion. I don't know how into the bootleg scene you are, but if you listen to, live shows from the 84 tour to the 5150 tour to the 88 tour, they all sound a little bit different to me. Granted, Rudy was doing the road work with the amps and stuff in 84, and then he came along for 5150, whatever. And there were some mild changes, but I believe the pickup in the 5150 was Ed was always mixing stuff up, but I think it was the same pup from 84 up to, 88. And I think the last time he played the 5150 live, other than the 2004 tour, which I actually got to see it live in that, was the opening of the Cabo Wabo Club in 1990, April 90. And then, the PV Wolfgang pup went in there. But I'll tell you, doesn't that pickup have a distinctive sound to it?
It does, but I think they all do. I mean, it's to me, I look at it as a different era, and I got to figure out how I'm going to get to that sound. So that's kind of the process that I use to figure all this stuff out. So I'll listen to all the bootlegs, I'll listen to the live stuff. And again, I've had the experience of playing with these amps and this style of amplifier for 40 plus years. I know them inside and out and what they're doing and how to get to a certain thing, how to mic them. I know the difference between how a black back sounds, how a greenback sounds, how a 20-watt greenback, all of that stuff. So it's to me, as you've probably heard me explain on other of these, interview type things that we do on the internet here, when I'm working on trying to capture like the ToneX stuff, it's a test the constant test. I'm tracking, I'm making thousands of recordings
Right.
to rule out certain theories and all of this sort of thing. And that includes pickups, you know, pot values, tubes, bias, different, you know, different circuit options in the Marshalls.
Yep.
You know, all kinds of different things. And then post-production is a whole nother can of worms about what you do with that. So I'm always wary of soundboard bootleg recordings. I'm always wary of live recordings because you don't know what's been done to that.
Exactly.
So to use that as a judgment, I listen more to the again, back to the timbre of the guitar and the character of the distortion that's coming off the guitar.
Yep.
And how sharp a note might be. I mean, sharp not in pitch wise, but in sharpness of the tone.
Yep.
And then you can kind of get a feel for what was going on. But again, that's just testing and years and years and years and years of playing this stuff. So I don't know.
So 1980 comes along, you get that guitar that's behind you, your VH1 style guitar.
Right.
And now you're gigging and stuff. I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're using Marshall's heads at that time.
Yeah.
When did you, at that time, 1980, obviously you were in the Van Halen mode, you're gigging. When did you start to chase that sound? I want to get the Van Halen 1 sound. I want to get the VH2 sound. I want to get Women and Children first. I want to get Fair Warning. I want to get that. When did you start saying, I want to see how I can get that sound? And when did that become a, and this is, we're gearing up into going into the ToneX stuff. But
right.
When did you really start chasing that early VH sound?
Well, you know how we are as guitar players. So I'm, you know, I get done seeing them, and you know, Van Halen 1, Van Halen 2 are out. Women and Children First just came out. I'm finally getting to the point where I can actually kind of play.
Yep.
You know, and that's the sound that was playing in my head.
Yeah.
Was that guitar sound.
Right.
So I don't think there was ever a point. The point that I really started chasing it was when Ed died, and I did that first Brown Sound tribute video, the Van Halen 1 Brown Sound Quest video that I did.
Yeah.
And that's the first time I ever tested my theories and I ever put it out there in front of everybody, because I always kind of knew what he was doing to get that sound, because I was playing the same gear, trying to keep the volume down on it. I was encountering the same things. I had dummy loads. I had all of that stuff.
Variac and all that. Yeah.
I've been using that for years. So it was always kind of like that was the sound you were always chasing in your head. That was the quintessential guitar sound. That was the one that inspired you to play. So you'd stand up on a stage in front of playing your own original music. But always in the back of your mind, you're hearing that glorious Van Halen 1 guitar sound, you know. So
yeah,
I didn't, long answer, but I didn't start chasing it till I had to really put my money where my mouth was and show and put that video out. And I did that as a tribute to Ed because of the genius of how I felt Ed was, and how unique it was. And it was my way of making a tribute to him, because it's the only way I really could pay tribute, is to just put him up on the pedestal and say the guitar sound, the playing, the style, the songwriting. There was no other way for me to express that. So that's when it first came out. That's when I really said, I'm going to figure this thing out. And that was a video of, that's where my experimentation process came. As I stuck mics in front of the cabinets, and I was trying to get this, and I was teaching myself how to shoot video and how to edit and sync video with audio and everything.
What year was this ish? Like what are we talking?
This is like, well, what year did Ed die? I mean, he's been gone for 4 years, right?
He died in October 6th, a day after my birthday was the 5th. He died in October 6th, 2020. So yeah, okay.
So it's 6 years. Wow. All right. So
that's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So that's when the official tone chase started. Not that I hadn't been playing that with that sound all this time, or something similar to that sound, but that's where I put rubber to the road and said, okay, I'm going to lay it out there what I think was really going on, and that's where it all started, and that's what brought ToneX to me. That's what brought IK Multimedia to me, is they watched my videos, and I'll never forget that phone call. It was like, he goes, "You're the internet Van Halen guy, right?" And I just kind of laughed at him. You say, "Okay, I guess."
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how it all started. And then I really went down the rabbit hole to try to make sure that the ToneX stuff was as accurate as could possibly be.
So from the late 70s, 80s, 90s, and up into the 2000s, you were using the Marshalls. You were doing everything pretty much Ed did, and that was your sound. I would imagine that's when you got the Greco guitars and the V's and all that stuff. I'm going to get into that in a second, but actually let's go with that first before we get into the sound, because I want to move into the ToneX thing, and I want to ask you a couple other questions about some different amps. But back to the guitars just for a second. You're doing the stripe thing. Where did the V come from, and the Greco and all that? I mean, that had to be a passion of yours. Like, hey, I want these guitars Ed played.
Well, okay, right. So I was kind of on my private quest at that point. So before, I was thinking, okay, I can afford this stuff now. I know what it is now.
Yeah.
And I started picking that stuff up. I was aware I had Super 70 pickups for a long time. Loved them for years. And did I lose you?
No, I'm here. I'm here.
You just disappeared from me. All right.
So
I thought we dropped connection, but yeah. So I kind of went on a quest to find some of those guitars, and just for my own personal thing, because I knew what they were, and I knew what, and of course I was an Ed fan, so I thought, okay, I got to get it's right here.
For sure. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, that's a huge part of that sound, and honestly, that's my favorite guitar.
Where did you find that Greco? Because those are the same exact guitar. I've done a lot of,
except for the pickups.
Right. But you put a Super 70 in. That's what this one. Yeah.
Right. I found it on eBay. Like, you're just scrolling on eBay and you go,
yeah.
And I'm embarrassed to say what I even paid for it, because it was what these things are going for. My wife wants me to tag everything in here, because she wants me to put a price tag on it, because I think she's going to kill me one of these days.
I went through all my stuff last year with my wife, and we got everything documented.
Don't do it, man. Don't do it.
It's worth like 3 homes. Seriously.
I know. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't let them know. But yeah, so I just, I've known about the Greco stuff since the Ace Frehley days. Since I was because he was, and the Ibanez Iceman that Paul Stanley was playing there was a Greco version. They were the same. So I've known about that since the 70s. I've known about the Grecos, and I knew about those lawsuit guitars. And some buddies of mine had the Ibanez Les Pauls, the lawsuit Les Pauls that had the set neck, not the bolt on it. They were better than the Norland Les Pauls that you could buy at the time.
Right.
And so I've always every time I saw one of those deals come up, I always knew what they were. And I said, do I want it? So I got a bunch of Grecos in here. I got like a Berglund copy Greco that's hanging up there. My double neck is a Greco. God, there's a couple more, I think, too. But you lose track. But
Japanese Grecos, I'm telling you, they, like you said, other than maybe a little bit of hardware here and there, they are the same exact thing. And those are going for crazy amounts these days. I remember back in 2002 or 3. Oh gosh, I was on eBay one day and I found a 76 Destroyer, and it was the guy wanted like $1,800 for it. I'm like, I don't have that right now. I almost pulled the trigger, Jim. So what do? I got a custom Donnie Ward, you know, and Donnie did everything and
Right.
direct parts, so it's got the Super 70, and you know, Donnie did this
Yep.
for, and it's basically the same thing. And isn't it amazing in the world we live in today? Almost anything can be recreated.
Yeah. No, it's cool. I mean, it is cool. Here I got Paul up in Canada winding pickups. I just sent a couple of T-tops out of my 77 custom. If you can see the natural colored custom on the wall back there.
I do.
Notice the pickup cavities are empty in it.
Yes, it's like Ed's from it's like Ed from Women and Children First.
Both of them are gone because I shipped them up to Canada for him to take them apart, and we're going to build T-top replicas.
Dissect them.
It's one of my favorite sounding pickups. I just love the way that guitar sounds.
That's awesome. That's great.
So I'm always tinkering. It's a constant deal, and it's not always Ed related, but a lot of it is. So
sure. Now your V, you got a couple of V's there. When did you acquire those flying V's?
All right, so I got the Ibanez. That's the Rocket Roll. That's a 76 Rocket Roll. I got that about the same time I got the Greco Explorer or Destroyer, whatever they call them, the EX 700 or whatever it is.
Yep.
And I just bought the other one, the Chibi. It's because it's Karina, because I'm going to be doing a big PAF shootout. In fact, I've got 7 pickups coming to me, 7 PAF wound style pickups.
Wow.
With I think 4 different magnets. So my mission is to do 28. It's 4 times 7, so it's 28 pickup tests, and I'm going to do it in the Karina Wood Chibi.
Nice.
So we're trying to find the quintessential 58 flying V PAF, which would have been in the bursts.
Yeah.
So that's a project that's going to be coming up probably after NAMM is when I really get into the nuts and bolts of it. But
yeah. Well, I can't wait. 2026 is going to be a good year for the Jim Gaustad videos, no doubt. So, quick question. We're going to jump into ToneX here. What time we go? Oh, we got some time. You got a little bit of time?
I'm good. And Natalie's been good too, so I want to talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, I got the Steinberger part coming here pretty soon.
All right. So what do you want to talk about? Or you got anybody in the chat that wants to ask anything? Or
well, let's jump in the chat for a second here and just see what we got. Learn the correct way to hold the pick. We're talking about picks. Okay, we got a question for you here, Jim. Do you have the Halen pickup in one of your guitars? Noticed
not anymore. Not anymore. So the Halen FW, it's a really good pickup. And Greg did a great job winding it and putting them out there. And it just, to me, it isn't quite, I'm again meticulous, ridiculous. And so that gave birth to a theory, and I got some great tones out of it, but it was always just lacking a little bit. It was the closest thing I had at the time. I'm always commissioning guys to wind pickups. I mean, because I've always got a theory about something. So I've been at this for a while.
Sure.
And I got Mr. McKeever, the professor up in Canada, who just absolutely, he's as nuts as I am about this. And I'll call him up and say, Paul, what do you think? We got, and then we talk it over, and then it's a lot of back and forth. And he'll do anything. He'll wind anything we can come up with, and let's put it to the test and let's do the theory. So no, the Halen FW, I did that last pickup shootout. I included it in that pickup shootout. But to me, it's a better sounding JB, but it's not quite right for what Ed had. It is a killer pickup, but it's not exactly what. If we're going down the Van Halen rabbit hole, it misses just a little bit.
Yeah,
it'll get you by. And I played plenty of gigs with it, but it was doing the Van Halen thing. But it's just, when I started getting into the ToneX thing, it had to be precise.
Yep.
That's where that came from. So that one came out.
Got a question. Hey, Jim, what's the current state of your 5150 with the pot? 250 or 500K?
Okay, so when I did the video, the latest, that 5150 where I'm playing Good Enough, and that's supposed to be the 1984 guitar.
Yep.
I've got a 500K in there because you can hear, when you listen to the actual recorded version of that song on the album, you could hear the amp choking. It's choking on the high end. You can hear it. It's got some blocking distortion happening with the actual super lead.
Awesome.
Listen to it closely, and then the harmonizers are enhancing it, so you're getting that clipping, and that comes from feeding too much high end into the super lead. Like your pickup's too bright.
Yeah.
So on that clip, I'm running a 500K with a JB Antiquity pickup. That's all that is. Everything else is just straight into the amp.
Okay, so gosh, that's on the way to work tomorrow morning. I'm listening to the album again, going in. I mean, I've heard it a million times, but wow, I never thought of that. So that brings a question to me. So when you listen to 1984, the album, and obviously Ed was okay. Alan, I don't know if I haven't seen Alan Garber in here.
Well, we're safe. We're safe. Just
it's safe. He's going to cut me off at the knees here. No, I love the guy to death. There was always this speculation. The first time we ever saw the 5150, is a picture of the US Festival. Ed's backstage playing to Frankie. There's the 5150 in the back. No space tape on it quite yet. I've heard, I have an interview somewhere of Ed saying I used the new guitar when I recorded this album, 1984. But I know Alan and some other folks will still say it was the Frankie and whatever. But forgetting, so whether we use the Frankie or the 5150 in the recording of 1984, my guess is it was probably a little bit of both. Plus, you had the Vive, Hot for Teacher, and all the other stuff too. But if you listen to him live in 84, and Jim, here's where I'm going to go to you and I'm going to ask your opinion. And, I'll try not to be long-winded. Gosh, live, it sounded so much cleaner in live with a 5150 guitar. And I know, he had a different guy running the amps and everything and running the equipment. But then you listen to 5150, and to my ears, the live stuff and the album sound kind of similar. Now, the 1984 Kramer, he did play during the 1984 tour, but it was different. Had a different neck on it. Had a whale tail Floyd on it. It was a totally different neck. And my guess is it was probably a different pickup. And then 5150 comes along, and he is your interpretation that he switched the pickup out?
Now, I think the problem is everybody gets too hung up on all of this. You're not taking into consideration the signal chain.
Okay.
You've got a wireless system. Everybody's played through wireless. What does that do to your sound? Okay. It thins it out. It brightens it up and it thins it out. So you got to, at some point, if you're either going to correct for it, you have to EQ it. You have to put an EQ behind the wireless before it goes into the amplifier. The difference between 1984 and 5150 in the studio, I'm pretty sure he was using the parallel load resistor on recording 5150, and live he was definitely using a dummy load, which sucks all the high end out of the amp.
Okay.
So you're using the wireless. The wireless is putting high end back into the signal chain, is putting that brightness back in, but you've got a dummy load hanging off the back of the amp, which is like putting a blanket over. So you listen to live without a net. Plus, that's been post-processed. So they've taken that into the studio and mixed it and everything and re-EQ'd it. But the reason I think 5150, the album, and plus the amplifier changed. So he's not using 12301, and 12301 sounds different than his batch of mid-70s 4-hole super leads.
Yep.
I mean, you've got, if you really want to get into it, he's got, instead of on the V1A, V1B, I don't know how far you want me to go down the rabbit hole. 12301 has got two 820 ohm resistors on it. When you start getting into the 70s Marshalls, you've got an 820 and a 2K7 resistor. Changes the entire character of the amp. It makes it more aggressive. It makes it brighter. Yep. So those amps are more aggressive, whereas 12301 is a warmer, and it's got a more gainy sound. Yep. In what we're used to hearing. The other ones are harsher and more forward. The 70s four-holers. So you can't really compare. It's not apples to apples. It's not even close to apples and apples. Right. So
there's so many different variables. And you know, you were talking about wireless a second ago, and I tell you, Jim, just in this interview, I'm learning so much more than I even thought of. There's all these. I'm making little notes here just for apples I can jump down. But wasn't he using a Sony wireless at that time too? It was a Sony wireless, right?
But the technology is, I mean, the technology only got better. It got better as far as reception goes, the diversity systems. I mean, everybody gets hung up on the Schaefer Vega, you know, the early on Schaefer Vega. What that was all about was Vega was producing that same wireless before Ken Schaefer came along.
Yep.
What Schaefer brought into it was the diversity antenna system, the two antenna system with the switching between the two antennas for better signal integrity. But the companding circuit was all Vega. The magic for the tone was all that companding circuit and how you could boost that compression built into the transmitter. Wireless units have come a long way, and that Sony was like, you pulled out your nasty cordless, that your mock-up of the nasty. Yeah, the Blue 80. That still had that 2-to-1 companding circuit, so that behaved similarly to the Schaefer Vega. But as technology moved along, and by the time he got to, I mean, you see pictures of Fair Warning, he's still using the Schaefer. You can still see the Schaefer belt pack on his strap, and then he would sometimes use the 80 unit.
Yeah, I'm keep talking. I'm looking for a picture of Diver Down. I have a buddy of mine sent me a picture from Diver Down where he's got the nasty.
Yeah, he was still using the blue. He was using both of those still in 82.
Yep.
And possibly 83. 84 was probably the introduction of, I know he was using Samson for a little bit, the Samson diversity system, and then somewhere in between that came the Sony wireless. But they all sound similar. Like when you use, I mean, I hate digital wireless units. They sound like crap to me. The digital circuit plus the latency just drives me nuts with a digital wireless. And I've got them in my rack for backup, but I prefer a UHF or, you know, VHF is so passe these days. You can't even find one, but I've still got some old VHF units in the rack, and I've got some UHF stuff. So that's always one of my go-to things. You take an actual UHF wireless and run your guitar signal through it and record it, and don't re-EQ it. That'll give you a lot of insight into what Ed was doing live.
Yeah.
Because you'll start to hear those sounds and you'll go, oh, that's where it comes from.
Right.
That's the wireless degrading the tone. Or maybe it's not degrading. Yeah, there it is, the 80. Maybe it's not degrading. It's like the whole, you know, like in doing the ToneX stuff, I've emphasized it a lot. It's the cable. If you use the Canary cable or the Monster cable, the cable that's too good, that's got the low capacitance, the amp is so bright it cuts your head off. And that's kind of what the wireless unit does too, because you're getting rid of all that cable capacitance.
Right.
So that greatly affects the tone. So that's what, when you hear the live stuff, always take that into consideration, because you're hearing the wireless unit and how it's affecting the amps. And at some point, he's either re-EQing that after the wireless, or they're fixing it in post, or they're fixing it at the soundboard. But that's why it always sounds so brittle bright when he's playing live, when you hear those bootlegs.
There's an interview Jazz Obert put out within the last couple of years, back from 79. It was either during or, well, probably post the VH2 tour.
Mm-hmm.
Ed's talking about the Nasty and the Vega, and he says when he was in Japan, he had to switch things up a little bit because the frequencies were different.
Yeah.
which is interesting. That must even make what you're talking about even more difficult.
Well, it is, because there were so many radio signals. The airwaves were jammed. And I told you before we went on the air that blue Nady system, the nasty cordless, came with that, like a 2-space rack mount Toshiba FM receiver. So you dial it in on the transmitter, then you try to find it on the receiver. Then you just plug it straight in. I mean, that's how crude they were.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's you would find any frequency that was open that you could get a clear signal path with to your amp, where you weren't getting interference.
It's funny because, Ed, was a wireless guy for all those years. And then you look at some live recordings from some of the 5150 tour. I forget, I think it might be the Montreal show. I can't remember. But he goes to play Good Enough, and he's got a wire. He's got a cable.
Yeah.
And obviously it's because he can't get what he needs. And then, there's all these malfunctions and stuff. And then you jump forward to, oh gosh, I mean, nobody wants to talk about 2004, but
right. With that ridiculous extension, I have no idea what that was even all about.
I have one of my PV Wolfgangs has that on there for obviously for collection purposes.
Right.
He goes back to a wire, and of course he's tripping over the thing all the time, and he's trying to wind it because it's getting caught up, and and then eventually goes back to wireless. But it's funny how an artist, like Ed, is, and I guess you could say even in the dark times that Ed was going through with personal stuff, he's still chasing a tone. He's still chasing something, and, as a true artist is never happy with what they're never 100% happy.
Right.
So, he's always going back and forth. I guess before we jump into the ToneX stuff, my last question on the equipment stuff, did you ever dabble with, were you ever interested in the Hagar air? I'm not talking about your latest video, but did you ever get into the 5150s or the Soldanos, or did you ever want to get into that live without, balance era, more processed sound, or did you ever dabble with that?
I did. Yeah, I certainly did. I did that when I was, I guess that would be with my band, the Flying Tigers. I did I had a pair of 5150 block. The PV 5150s. I had a pair of those that I was using live for a while. We recorded some studio stuff with them too. And I had a rack, and I was running dummy loads, and I was running delays. I had the whole rack set up. I had a pitch detune. I was using modulation on the rack mount delays and stuff. So yeah, I dabbled with that sort of thing for sure. I didn't keep the 5150s for long.
Yeah.
I went back to Marshalls.
Sure.
It wasn't my thing. I actually am looking for a Soldano SLO 100 right now.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons, because I'm going to need it coming up in the next few months, probably, to create some things. But they're very hard to come by these days. I'm looking at a kit. I might actually have to build a kit of an SLO 100. So we'll see where that goes.
It's funny. I've always that is one amp I've never had. And one of these days I have to add it to the collection. I have to get a Soldano. I just, we all know the story. Ed was the Marshall guy, and then things changed. Late 80s, early 90s. He starts kind of going into the Soldano. He orders that head from Mike, and and everybody's, and then folks are saying, 5150s came out, and he stole the circuit from the Soldano, and it's whatever, all that, whatever.
Right. Similar cold clippers. They're all the cold clippers.
Yeah.
Right.
And everything changed. But, me, being a fan of the old days, the medium days, and the later days, I have my days where I want to hear Women and Children first. I want to hear each one. I want to hear Fair Warning. Right. And then I have my days, Jim, where I'm like, I want to hear Balance. I want to hear Seventh Seal, Aftershock. I want to hear that processed, majestic, huge. sound. But I cannot, for the life of me, as a true Van Halen fan, and some of the people are going to be like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, whatever. I cannot say what my absolute favorite sound is because it changes. Sometimes I want to hear Roth, sometimes I want to hear Hagar, sometimes I want to hear a little bit of both. And I think, honestly, that is what really made me start really paying attention to you, because I mean, you focused on the earlier tones.
Mm-hmm.
And now I guess we'll jump into the ToneX stuff before we go to the, to the Steinberger stuff. But so you had your time with 5150s and it wasn't your thing, and you kind of went back to Marshalls. So tell me a little bit about, tell us, I guess you'd say, a little bit about, okay, you got your Marshall sound dialed in, you have that sound. Now all of a sudden here comes ToneX. And how can we do this in a more artificial way? How did that work out for you? And what made you, what grabbed you to say, I want to be part of this project?
Well, no, the way the story is actually, the truth of it is Chris O'Hara, who's the guitar marketing guy out in California for ToneX, for IK Multimedia.
Yeah.
He said it, he said we had to waterboard Jim to get him to come on board. It was a long conversation. I was very reluctant to do it because I had played the Kemper stuff. I had played, a bunch of the modeling stuff, and I didn't like it. It didn't feel real. It wasn't something I was interested in putting my name on.
Right.
And he finally said, well, would you at least just try it? Would you, check it out and then let me know what you think? And I did, and I tried it, and because he's a nice guy. And I tried it out and played it, and okay, I'll give it a shot. Let me see what I can come up with. And it was a big learning curve, I think, as much for me as it was for them, because we were trying to do the album tones, not just amp captures again. Right. So there's a different thing going on. And it was a long process. So for me, it started, so we released end of May last year, the 78, 79 collection. That's when that came out.
Yeah.
I started working on that a year previous November to that. Right. So it was well over a year. I delivered the 78, 79 collection probably December of that year, and it came out in May.
Wow.
So it was a year to try to figure out that first collection, and to try to figure out what ToneX needed to hear. And I probably made 1,000, 2,000 tracks of testing and figuring out where the amp needed to be, what the guitar needed to be, where the post processing needed to be. I mean, it was quite a process. So it was a hell of a learning experience.
Do you, so you and I were talking earlier on the show, the best things come when you're just sitting there noodling around, you're not pushing something. We're talking about Ed, back in 72, 73, right. Sitting on the bed where Alex is out dating and coming up with all this stuff.
Right.
So, and that's where the magic happens, because nothing's being forced. It's not labored. It's just comes like, whoa, this is, okay, that's how that happens. Do you remember the time when, you said, okay, I'll try this ToneX stuff. Let me give it a shot. Do you remember a particular time where a particular night, an hour, whatever, where you were actually sitting there playing? Maybe you were a little bit frustrated. Maybe you were, I'm on to something. Do you remember a time where you're like, boom, holy shit, fuck, that's it.
We got it. Yeah. That probably happened about 5-6 months in.
Yeah.
I was close. I was tickling it. It's like, God, it's got the right note bloom, but it's the distortion character's not quite right. And so if you've watched the history of that in the video that we shot with IK Multimedia and the how-to, or how it came about, I was always struggling with the distortion character on Van Halen 1. It's a very unique sounding album, and it doesn't sound like a super lead. That's not the way a Plexi Marshall sounds, a 68 Plexi Marshall sounds. It's really aggressive. And what did it for me was the pedal tone on I'm the One.
Yeah.
When you're swinging the A string, you're swinging the open A, you're swinging the open A string. That pedal tone, if you cannot get rid of the 260 hertz thump coming out of the speaker cabinet. You can try to use a parametric EQ and notch it out in post. You can try, but then you lose the meat, part of the meat of the timbre of the guitar. I know I keep using the word timbre, but it's so important to all this.
No, it is. It makes a lot of sense.
And so that's when I started thinking about pulling tubes, because I had heard this quote floating around the internet about how Ed had told Ted Templeman about, I know which tubes to pull to make the amp sound really mean.
Yeah.
And that kept playing over in my head, and I started thinking about it as a really young guy playing these 100-watt super leads. I used to run those amps in clubs with one tube in them, one output tube, and they would sound. The frequency range would get smashed. They get really narrow, and they get really aggressive.
Yeah.
I thought, and that's when the light bulb went off, and I went, son of a bitch. So I pulled valves 4 and 5. You know, they're numbered 1 to 7, starting with the small preamp tubes. So you take the 3 preamp tubes, and then the next 2 output tubes, I pulled them out. And the Marshall is a push-pull amplifier. So you've got the sine wave doing this. You got the top of the sine wave and the bottom of the sine wave. If you take out those 2 tubes, you've only got 1/2 of the sine wave going. And what that does to the harmonics that you're playing, the harmonics of the distortion and the character of the distortion and that pedal tone on I'm the One.
Yeah. That swing. Yeah.
That's when I got rid of that 260 hertz thump that you couldn't parametric EQ out and the distortion character got right. I said, I'll be damned. That's exactly what he did. So that's how I created the 78 portion of the 78, 79 collection. So then when you listen to 79, the amp gets warmer, it gets fuller, and there's less gain. It's because the 2 tubes go back into the amp.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, so all of this stuff is endless testing, using ears, miking it, tracking it, playing it, tracking it, and doing all that stuff, and then figuring out how to make ToneX hear it correctly so that it can reproduce that.
Right. Right.
So that was a whole nother process. So now I kind of figured it out, but and along the way, you know, for those that follow ToneX, they've got the V1 and the V2. The V2 is the new capture. So along the way, I was beta testing V2 and trying to get V2 to work for the Van Halen captures. So I'll never disclose which of the captures are V2 and which are V1.
Right.
Because people get hung up on that stuff.
Yeah.
Just play the ones that sound best to you is what. But I will say that the 5150 ones that I just did, that's all V2. That's all the new technology and everything. So I finally figured out what V2 wanted to hear too.
You know, I can just see, just listening to what you're saying and kind of just, you know, trying to put myself into your shoes, you know, Van Halen fan, guitar player since you were, you know, 11 or 9 years old, whatever, coming up through all this and all of a sudden, you know, here's this, you've tried all this stuff and I'm not really going to pay attention. I got my thing. I got my amps. I got my, you know, my gigs, whatever. I got my stuff, my guitars. And then here comes this thing and you're like, okay, give it a shot. Now you're on to something else and boom, you nail it. Okay, you got VH1, you got VH2. And I you know, watching the videos and starting to pay attention last year, really pay attention to what you were doing.
Mm-hmm.
What really, I was bought in. I was like, wow, this is great. But what really got me was when you went into the women and children and the fair warning stuff, you know, and then 84 came along and I'm like, wow, that's incredible. And then you just put the 5150 stuff out. And then finally I'm like, all right, this is freaking cool as hell. I want to do a show with this guy. Because I want to pick his brain a little bit. That had to be all right. We're going to get a little humorous here. Please, everybody watching, that had to be like a heroin addiction, almost like, all right, you got to get into women and children first, you know, and I'll tell you, that had to almost be like addictive. Like now you're excited to get into the next album. Now so you're switching pickups out, you're doing all this stuff, you're making these mods, you're trying this thousands, as you said, of takes.
Hey, hold that thought. There's something going on out here. I got to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Huck is after something. I'll be right back. Trust me.
I'm going to talk about.
Go to the chat. Go to the chat quick.
Okay, here we go. We're going to show the Bumblebee. This is my Bumblebee. This is a maple body. It is the correct route. It's got the It's got the original FRT1 Floyd Rose with the right bar. This is a DiMarzio Super Distortion, I believe. Donnie Ward neck. Vintage prototype nut. Schaller double tabs. And yeah, this is a great guitar. This is the VH picks, courtesy of our good friend Kurt. Yeah, this is a great guitar. Let's while we're waiting for Jim to come back, let's just jump in a little bit. Alan, Jim was talking earlier, and I know you jumped in. We were jiving on you a little bit earlier and joking about your incredible tablature and your just focus on getting the exact notes. So go back and watch the show. Let's see from the beginning. And thanks for jumping in. Jim is so good. He takes the mystery out of the tone chase. Lord, does this guy know his stuff? He certainly does. Guys, just sitting here listening to Jim right now is just, gosh, it's crazy the amount of knowledge this guy has on sound. I don't think I've ever listened to someone talk about Ed's sound, and specifically the earlier stuff, to the degree of what he's talking about. He is literally figuring out what Ed went through all these years later. I don't think anybody's really dialed it in like Jim has. Oh, Jim, you're back.
Sorry about that.
A while ago, and Alan is. I just told him we were picking on him earlier, in a good way.
Alan, how are you, buddy? I know. He's my best resource. He really is.
Yeah,
I'll reach out to him for all kinds of questions. What guitar was like this one I started screwing around with? So
he'll know. He'll know.
He does. I asked him for sure about that, and he confirmed my suspicions. So
Ryan from OU812 is in here. What's up, buddy? How you doing, man? There's so much stuff going on. I can't even keep up. That's amazing. I wonder why Ed would put the tubes back in for VH2 if he liked the tone without the 250 hertz thump on VH1.
Remember what he always said. He never liked the sound of Van Halen 1. So right. Here's this young guy. He's in the studio. What is he? 22. It's his first time into a major studio, and any of us that have been in a studio, especially the first time, and you come in with this, this half stack, and we all know how loud a 100-watt 4-hole Marshall is. They're telling him to turn down. It's hard to record a guitar that loud, and because it doesn't sound right. So he was trying to figure out how to make it sound good. But then later on, for Van Halen 2, he found he decided he didn't like that sound. He didn't want to record that raspy sound again. He didn't want that bright, aggressive sound. He wanted a warmer, what you hear him talk about in those Guitar Player magazine interviews, how the Brown sound, the big warm home stereo thing. I see the Killer is back. I was yelling for him to come back in. I think we got coyotes out there. Anyway, so that to me is why there was a change, why he put the 2 tubes back in. I don't think he really cared for the sound of Van Halen 1, and he said it more than once. I think which is ironic because that was the tone that brought us all into, you know, loving the whole Eddie Van Halen, all of it was that. So that's my thinking on it anyway. And when you back test things and you really listen to them and you stick a microphone in front of a cabinet and you're recording this stuff, like I was talking about earlier, the distortion character isn't quite right. And there's something about that first album that you can't duplicate unless you pull those tubes out. And so it was a great stumble on, one of those great light bulb moments when I discovered that. So, and to me, the tone change is obvious. And the amp 12301, when I say that, I think you all know what I'm talking about, what 12301 is. That's Ed's 100-watt super lead, the famous Marshall amp. That's the serial number of it. His sound gets cleaner and cleaner, with the exception of, I was going to say with the exception of Fair Warning, but honestly, when you listen to Fair Warning, a lot of the distortion that you're hearing is they're compressing. So they're using the 1176 compressors. So when they compress all that on the main bus or on the guitar bus, and they're compressing the chambers or the plate reverb, that's giving a false shimmer of extra gain. Plus they're EQing those reverbs. And so when you really pick apart Fair Warning, you go, that's not that dirty. It's really not that raspy. Women and Children First is a lot meaner sounding than Fair Warning is.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of tricks that go on with the post-processing. And that's what I say when we get into the ToneX realm. We're not doing amp captures, we're doing album tone. So trying to capture that album tone is not the same as what you're hearing in the room, because the amp didn't sound that way in the room. It sounds that way on tape.
Right.
So
no, that's amazing. Jim, what would you say your favorite from the Roth era, from VH1 right up to 84? If you had to pick a tone in that era, what would your favorite tone be?
You know, it's tough. I always kind of gravitate towards Women and Children First, because those guys just came off of 2 world tours, the busiest they'd been playing. They were young and hungry, and I don't know if it's the tone of the guitar as much as it's the attitude of the album.
Yeah,
as that album is so seat of the pants. It's so much fun. You can just tell they are such a tight machine that, you know, you listen to the whole low E string clicking in Romeo Delight, in the breakdown in Romeo Delight, when they come back in, it sounds like you're just waiting for the whole thing to fall off the rails, but bang, they all come back in. It's like,
yeah,
they're all just looking at each other. There's no click tracks. There's none of this crap going on. There's no grid. They're just all looking at Al. Are you ready? And they're and it's that the whole album's that way. So to me, that influences the tone, the way it was played, the aggressiveness of how it's played, the looseness of how it's played, makes that one of my favorites. And then I gotta go. I mean, I love them all, and I do love the 5150 or the Sammy era too. It's just different for me,
right?
You know, and I'm a Marshall guy. I love that sound. I grew up with that sound. I know how to get that sound. You know, so for me, I hear those things and I listen to them. And, you know, and the other thing is, we're all kind of cursed with, all of us tone chasers and guitar players are kind of cursed with you can't go watch a concert without looking at the lighting specials above the drummer. Oh, what are they doing on this part? Oh, well, I hear something in the PA I don't like. Oh, you pick apart everything. Oh, who's doing the harmonies now? Who's doing the harmonies? You know, you can't just go enjoy a show. So that's the way I listen to albums too. I listen to guitar parts, and I split everything apart, and I compartmentalize. And so it's hard for me to just answer that question. It sounds like a simple question, but what's my favorite? I don't know.
Yeah.
I love them all. And I love all kinds of guitar sounds. I love, you know, but Van Halen is, you know, kind of the top of the rock.
Oh, 100%. If you were a not necessarily a brand new guitar player, maybe you're an experienced guitar player, maybe you're someone who's been playing for 30, 40 years or 20 years. And say, for instance, you've, always been someone like me who isn't your most technologically adept person as far as computers and stuff. You plug into an amp, you got all the effects, you got the flanger, you got the phaser, you might have the Eventide stuff, a wah pedal, all that stuff. And you can get the sound that you really want out of your amps, whether you use Marshalls or 5150s or EVH, whatever. If you were intrigued enough to, I want to jump into this ToneX stuff. In your opinion, Jim, what would you recommend or coach someone on what do they need to get in order to get into this more computerized? I want to get that sound. I want to get Women and Children First. I want to get Fair Warning or whatever. I want to get into ToneX. What do I need to go buy? What do I need to purchase, and what do I need to have in order to jump?
It's a really good question. It comes down to what you want to do with it.
Yep.
And it comes down to, like, all right, so if you've got a decent Mac computer, if you've got a decent PC, and if you've got Pro Tools or you've got Logic, it's a no-brainer. Sure. Just put the software in and run it like a plug-in in your DAW. If you're going to the pedal thing, I mean, it comes down to, you got to look at this. Again, these are album tones. If you're thinking about, I want to have a ToneX and I've got an effects loop on my amplifier, my tube amp, and I'm going to just run the ToneX for the preamp. So I'm going to, and a lot of guys are doing this. A lot of guys on tour are running ToneX this way. Yeah. They're taking their effects return, they're taking the output of the ToneX and putting it into the effects return of their tube amp, then playing through the 4x12 cabinet. Yeah. Remember, this is a full range sound. So the tones aren't made for going through a guitar cabinet. They're made to go through like a really great studio monitor or a full PA system. So if you've got a good set of studio monitors or a good set of speakers that you really like the way they sound, full range speakers, not your guitar speakers, and you've got a decent computer that you don't have to worry about a lot of latency issues, because nothing's more irritating than playing your guitar through a computer. You strum the strings and the sound comes milliseconds later. I friggin' hate that.
Yeah.
If you've got a decent, like I've got a Mac, the one I mostly run is a Mac M3 chip. So it's Apple Silicon. And I don't have the stuff I do, like the 5150 one I did, the recent video I just dropped. That's ToneX. I'm playing ToneX. I think most people probably figured that. I did the amp capture and then I processed it in Logic. And then what you're hearing is the final sound process through Logic. But there's no great latency or phase issue problems that you would have if you have to have what I'm trying to say is you have to have a reasonably good machine. Otherwise, you're going to go the pedal route, and then you got to buy a full range cabinet, the FR cabinets, the flat response full range cabinets. So you're getting into a whole different pile of equipment.
Right.
If you really, I love tube amps. I find myself, I got all this stuff back here, but I find that I'll sit down here behind the mixing console and I'll pop Logic open and I'll click on ToneX, and I'll just, if I'm working on something, I don't need to blow my head off. Even at 68 volts, these things are louder than hell,
Yeah,
and I do have a power break, but I hate the way the power break sounds because I hate all attenuators because they squeeze and compress and mush out.
Yeah.
Even the best ones, the Fryettes, all of them, none of them, they all sound like crap. The Oxbox, they all compress. They all do what they're going to do. So yeah. I love the ToneX because I can sit down here behind the console and I'm playing a wide open Marshall.
Yeah.
Without all the compression from the attenuation or any of that crap. And it blooms like the real amp. It does what it's supposed to do. So going back to the question, and I know I can ramble,
No,
but
no,
it's
this up.
it depends on what you want to do with it. It depends on, you know, like I had a friend of mine send me a song recently to mix or to screw around with, and it wasn't tracked properly. And he wanted to get a part in a guitar part, but I couldn't just take the one guitar part out of the stereo track that he had given me, even if I had done the stem separation thing. So I just said, screw it. I popped ToneX open and I EQ'd it kind of the way his guitar sounded. And I just played the part. And that's my little secret where I just tracked the part with it. It was that simple. It was not like I had to stick a mic in front of an amp and get levels and do this. I just put ToneX in Logic and I popped it open and played a little lead break and then it was done.
Yeah.
And so it's so convenient for that sort of thing. And if you're doing any kind of, audio production work like that, it's so convenient. It's really worth it. I mean, so again, it all depends on what you want to do with it, what you're looking to do with it.
Well, I appreciate that answer, and I hope that I know I'm purchasing one, and that's thanks to you for all the hard work that you've done, because that's what the buying point for me was. I was like, wow, this is incredible. This is I mean, it's literally better than anything I've ever seen. Now, I guess another question I'll ask is, say, for instance, okay, someone says, I want to capture all of the Van Halen sounds from 78 to, well, we'll say 95, 98.
Right.
Do you see capabilities for like a balance era sound in ToneX too?
It's a thing. All right. So I alluded to, we released in May. The initial collection came out end of May.
Yep.
IK Multimedia's got a lot of products and they've got a lot of release dates and they've got their 2026 booked out. There are certain things to bring the modern, the more higher gain, more harmonized Van Halen sounds to life to ToneX. There are certain things that need to happen under the hood.
Sure.
For ToneX.
Yep.
Is that something that's being done without letting anything out? I only know so much. It's definitely something that's in the works of creating the ability to do that.
Yep.
So, and then we also have to get into the release schedule, and I have to create the collection. So what I did with the 5150 video was exactly what I said it was. It was the first rabbit hole test. I'm going to fine tune those and get them better. So that was the first one because I always want to see how they translate. I want to see how it comes across. I want to get a feel for how everybody's thinking. If I've got it, if I've nailed it or not. It's just I'm bouncing it off. I'm bouncing it off everybody, all of you guys. I'm bouncing it off you to see what you think. Is it worth pursuing? And I think now we've all agreed, based on the success of this test video, that it's worth pursuing. So we're gonna, because initially we had the original idea was we were just going to do the first 6 albums.
Yeah. Right.
And as these came out,
you said that. Yeah.
And the sales were fabulous, and everybody is super hyped about the sales, and I'm super appreciative. It's worldwide. It's cool as can be. We started talking about, well, do we need to do the Sammy era? Like, I don't know. Should we? So here comes the 12-string Telecaster. Here comes the Steinberger. Here comes, so are we going to do it in some way, shape, or form? I would put my money on it. Yes, if we do this, and we get it in the schedule and we get it, all full speed ahead, I would say, yeah, it's coming, and we'll have I don't know how far I'll go to, a different kind of truth. I think by the time we get to the EVH amps, I think in my mind, I probably stop at the Soldano.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think I probably do the Soldanos, and then the rest of it is, I mean, did he ever record with the PD? I don't think so.
I mean, I think in Balance he might have tried it a little bit, but I think that was more live. I think that, I mean, he was back to the Marshall in Balance.
And yeah, and I think, well, a combination of the Soldano and the Marshall, I think, is what Balance was.
And he was using the Eventide stuff, and everything was much more processed, and he had the stereo detune going on then, and it was a much different sound. You know, I'll be honest with you, Jim, I'm telling you, I listen to what you guys have put out now, and I'm just, as the time goes on, and I'm just in awe. I'm like, wow, this is just incredible. I would personally like to see you go right up through OU812, because there was a shift there too.
Oh yeah.
In OU812, there was a shift, and there was a huge shift with Fern Lawful. And
if you think I'm not already working on OU812, you don't know me well enough yet.
Yeah, right.
so yeah, it's the 5150's got the bass string off. It's got the doohickey in the control cavity.
Yeah.
So we're doing the broken coil thing. So I'm already working on it. In fact, I was working on it this afternoon. So.
Keep it up, I'll tell you.
So I will get everything dialed in, and I'm thinking that it's going to be, we've got to get a buy-in from the top levels of IK and all that stuff.
Sure.
Based on the reaction, I think I just can't give you a timeline on exactly when it happens, and you got to give me time to create the collections too.
Sure.
And figure out what's important and what needs to go into the collections, because these probably look, the core amplifier tones I still have to capture. Like, that's what I did. These are the video I put out this last weekend, has got a brand new core amplifier tone that I captured, that I dialed in with the stuff back here. So that's a brand new ToneX tone model. It's the post-production stuff that we need to throw in there to make it the end user, so they can load that patch, or maybe it's a preset, and maybe it's part of the hardware, that the firmware within ToneX, or whatever it is that we figure out how to make it happen. But I want that same experience that they've got, that the user got from the first 3 collections, the first 6 Roth albums, where it's blow away, where you plug it in and you add a little reverb and you go, God, here it is. I got the sound. Obviously I want that same experience for the end user. So to me, that's the ultimate, to dial that in.
Right.
And I won't put my name on it until it is that,
Sure.
But it's cool. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun trying to figure out, it's the challenge of trying to figure out how to not only recreate them, but how to get them to market.
Yeah. Well, you keep up the good work. We're going to jump over to the Steinberger realm here in a second, but I got one quick question that's in the chat here. And guys, I know there's a million questions that have been asked, but we just been going all over the place, so I apologize.
And I tend to ramble, so
no, there's just so much good conversation. I got 2 quick questions. Jim, did you do the captures on a PC or a Mac?
Mac. But I don't think it matters. I don't do the captures. So the ToneX, if you're familiar with the ToneX software, I don't do the captures within the ToneX software. ToneX has a reamp track that once I dial the amplifiers in, once I dial the whole thing in, so I'll record the real parts playing the guitar, and then listen back through various sets of monitors, take it out into the car, listen to the car stereo. You do all of that stuff just the same way you would mix an album. Once I get it dialed in like that, I now have learned what ToneX needs to hear. I send the ToneX reamp track out of Logic. So I put it in as a Logic track, reamp it to the Marshall, and then capture that, because there's a whole capture process within ToneX, but that's not exactly how we do this.
Sure.
It's in some ways it's more streamlined, in some ways it's much more complicated. So where am I going with all that? It's a long roundabout way to answer the question. Is the way I'm doing the captures, you can't do at home the same way, kind of thing. Unless you've got all this crap. So
sure. And one final question is the tone. I think you might have answered this, but another Jason Hobbs guitarist says, is the ToneX Van Halen software compatible with the Logic Pro X?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You just run it as a plugin. You run it like at the same place you plug in a reverb or anything else. You just put it in an insert on the channel, okay, and you've got the ToneX sitting in there. So it's the same deal. Works great.
All right. Well, let's shift gears a little bit here. We are starting to run out of time, but we do have a couple other things we're going to talk about. So I'm just going to set this conversation up with showing this, and pretty much
so I got to show this pile of crap after that one. Really?
No, that is exactly the same thing, and I'm sure you play it better than I play this. But
well, I'm not sure it's exactly the same thing. But
this is a Steinberger GL2T 1985 guitar, and I've had it for many years, and most people know the story on this thing. But it's got the trans trem on it, and I want to give a little shout out to Headless USA, Natalie, who's watching the show, and I thank you for the share. And I'm going to let Jim take this. I also want to give a shout out to RWB Precision, who is making these trans trems. I'm lucky enough; I've had a few trans trems. I did have one of the RWB ones. This is also an original Steinberger trans trem guitar. This is a GM1T. And I also have owned a couple of Honers like Jim has here, and he's got a really interesting story to tell us on this. And Jim, go right ahead. Tell us what you did.
So ramble on, as Robert Plant once said, but all right, once sang. So I bought this guitar a long, long time ago. I used to have I call it the Vito Bratta Steinberger, much like what Rob just showed. It had the humbucker and two singles in it, but it had the trans trem. And I had that. I bought it from Daryl Sturmer, guitar player from Genesis, back in the, I probably bought that guitar in 86 or 87. And I was touring with the Victims. I had the two guitars. As I showed you, the black and white striped one, and I had that Steinberger. I had the trans trem, and I kind of figured out what Ed was doing with it when I heard Summer Nights and all that stuff. I went, oh my God, how is he doing that? And I did my research, so I kind of figured that out. So I had that very early experience with the trans trem. So fast forward, I found this. I would, like every broke musician does, I sold my Steinberger at sometime in the 90s. Oh, feedback. What do I got there?
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
I had my phone on.
So that's all right. I'm already deaf.
Yeah.
But, so I was doing a lot of flying at the time, and I wanted a travel guitar. So I found this Honer, and it had the Steinberger licensed standard trem in it. And I just kind of played it and traveled with it. It was like a hotel guitar kind of thing for me. Nothing special. The frets were terrible. So when this whole ToneX thing started coming about, and Headless USA, I subscribed to when they started talking about their retool. This was like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, or whatever it was. Yeah. They said they're working on the repro of the trans trem. I said, oh God, I'd love to. I was kicking myself in the ass. I'm so sorry that I had sold that guitar, because the trans trem is such a cool. I mean, it's such a unique. It makes the way you play guitar, you think differently about it.
Totally.
And anyway, so I knew what the device was, and I knew it's a complicated, tricky little thing, but it does really impressive things. So I had this Honer, and I was trying to find anything, and Ed Roman, I'd look for used trans trems along the way. And I think Ed wanted $2,500 when I looked at it. He said, "Oh, I'll get one for you for $2,500." And and nobody could directly answer me, will it fit where the S Trem, the standard Trem fits? But I just got myself on the mailing list, and when Headless USA finally said, okay, they're available, I waited the first round because I wasn't sure that as far as ToneX, we were going to go forward into that era, the Sammy Hagar era. But I said, what the hell? I'm going to get on the mailing list. It's $600. What the hell? Let's just let's just screw it. Let me just get one. And I didn't know if it would fit. And they could use a little more info on the website, but I think I'm going to shoot a little short video this week about how this works and the idea behind the Trem, because I think a lot of people are confused by it. They don't really understand what it does, how it does it. And I'm getting a lot of questions about, it's coming up in the chat on YouTube or in the comments on YouTube. Well, so the Honer is a solid maple. It's a maple body and it's a solid maple neck. It's not graphite. It's a set neck, you know, but everybody's saying, you know, everybody's a naysayer. That's the other thing. Well, you can't pull two tubes. You can't run the Variac below 90 volts because you'll wreck the tubes. You'll wreck your amp. You can't put a Trem on a wooden neck guitar because it won't work. It does.
It does.
It works. It does work.
And he had a P.D. Wolfgang for Fire in the Hole.
Well, I thought it was a Les Paul. Okay, so Fire in the Hole he had it on there, but I think Me Wise Magic is a Les Paul.
It's a Les Paul. It's a special Les Paul, and he also had it on a Kramer.
Yeah. So you can definitely put it on a wood neck guitar. I did leave it locked up, you know, a step and a half overnight more than once, plugged in, because again, I'm an old guy. The memory's starting to go. But the neck had a slight bit more bow in it from being locked up a step and a half.
Sure.
But if you can get this thing to play in tune, if you can adjust it in all positions where it's playing in tune, the wooden neck is not causing you any problems. So let's dispel that myth right away. This is a super cool unit, and every Van Halen nut should play one because it's fun. Yeah. It's just super fun.
So much fun.
And it's complicated. It's tricky, but it's not that bad. But I love it. I put the. Go ahead. What was that?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry, Jim. Go ahead. What were you saying?
As far as the electronics in it, so everyone, a lot of people, before we came on tonight, I said, "What pickups do you have in yours?" And you said the 85s, right?
Yeah.
Everybody assumes it's an 81. No, it's the 85. To get the sounds that he's getting on 5150.
Yeah.
What comes later? I mean, I don't know what was in the Les Paul for Me Wise Magic. I don't know what pickup was in there. If I get to that point, I'll figure it out. But for the Steinberger though, it's the EMG 85. It is not the 81. It's definitely, the tone speaks to you once you get the amplifier dialed and everything. That's the only obvious choice.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's integral to this part of it, and I'm so glad that Headless USA, you know, got behind it and reintroduced this, because I can stop kicking my own ass since the 90s for selling that guitar.
Yeah.
So.
I sold mine, and I was lucky enough to get it back years later. But, you know, it's funny. There's an interview out there with, I think it's with Steve Rosen, and he's talking about, it was in 1986 during the 5150 tour, or it was just after the album came out, or before the tour, or during the tour. Ed was saying that when he got that guitar, we got two of them. He got two of these.
Right.
One he had Jim O'Connor paint the faceplate, and the other one he kept black. I'm sure he had others too, but he said that he had Ned Steinberger make him a couple pickups that were a little bit hotter. I remember he said, or a little bit. He goes, I wasn't satisfied with the sound. He goes, I had Ned make me something a little bit. Oh, and I have to go.
I get. That is absolutely the truth. I did the same thing with my Steinberger, my Vito Bratta Strat style Steinberger. I ripped out all the EMGs and we put hotter pickup. We put Duncans in it.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't stand the way the EMG sounded. I'm still not a fan of the EMG, but if you're trying to get
Yeah.
to that recorded sound, you got to use the EMG, and that's what, because that's what it is.
That's what it is. Now, Jim, are you using the Trans Trem calibrated strings in yours too, or just regular?
Yeah, and I'm having I'm going round and round, and I've been on the phone with D'Addario because I'm using their calibrated set, and the high E keeps unwinding, and so the high E is going flat, and so I find myself soldering the windings at the ball to make sure that it stays there. But they're working on it. They're sending me another batch. And that is a problem, finding calibrated strings for the Trans Trem. If you want them in a 9 gauge, you can find the 10s, but who the hell wants to play 10s?
Who wants to play 10s, especially when you're doing the Eddie stuff?
Exactly.
You know, it's funny. I'm just going to find a picture here real quick because I think you'll get a kick out of this. My Les Paul Steinberger, where's the picture of it? Obviously, it has a Trans Trem in it, but it does not have, it doesn't, oh gosh, where's the picture? I got to find it.
Holy cow, you got me again. Wow. Straight into the left ear. In ear monitor coming in right there.
Actually, that's Adam Reaver from FU Tone. That just, actually, and I just want, I got to.
You're worse than that monitor guy I fired a few years ago. Anyway, all right.
So this guitar right here, whoops, it's got a Trans Trem in it. So it's the Les Paul. It's the MeWise Magic version. The thing about that guitar is that has to take regular strings because it's got the ball at the end. It won't take the double ball. And what I find with that one is, unless it's funny, you said you have to solder the windings. And if I don't solder the windings, when I'm locking it up to play Summer Nights or even Fire in the Hole, you lock it up 1 notch.
Yeah.
Summer Nights is 2. The high E string will pop. It'll snap.
Yeah. I had the, on my Steinberger, I bought the nut that fit on there where you could use regular guitar strings and it would clamp down with the Allen wrench. So I still got that in one of my parts bins. I sold a guitar, but for whatever reason, I saved that part.
I know, right?
So I don't know if I can do it on the toner or not. It doesn't have little pinholes for it, but I was thinking about trying that because the string thing has been a struggle. That's the one complaint. So if Natalie's got a source for the 9s, that would be fabulous, and I would love to pass that on to people when I shoot this little Steinberger Trans Trem video that I'm going to do.
I for years have been using the well, I mean, a lot of people use these.
The
labels.
Yeah, I'll show you the ones I'm using here.
But I've been using these, the D'Addario Trans Trem strings lately. Is that what you're using?
This is what I've got. If you.
Oh, hey, I got the same thing. I got another set of right.
These. So I've got a batch that they're unwinding. The unwound strings are unwinding at the ball. So I'm soldering them to try to keep that. But when people have been, I get all these, like I said earlier, I feel these comments about, well, you can't use that Trans Trem with the wooden neck guitar. No, it's the strings that are the problem. It's not the guitar that's the problem. So, But it's also, and I don't think we addressed this, it's not a drop-in replacement. You do have to route the guitar. So I'm fearless when it comes to that stuff. I route all my own crap, and I just do what I got to do to make it work.
I know there's a few different trems for the Steinberger type guitars. There's the S Trem, there's the R Trem, and then there's the Trans Trem. And I know the Honers were the R Trem. And
mine was the S Trem.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I think I'm mixed up, Jim. Then, so the S Trems required routing if you were going to put a Trans Trem in. The R Trems were a drop-in. I think that's what it was.
What the hell? I mean,
Yeah, seriously. And I know that for a fact because I think I was just backwards because the Honer that I had years ago, just like yours, I had an opportunity to get a Trem one time on eBay before I got this one. And they said, oh, there's all this routing. It's got to be. And this is like late 90s. And I'm like, I don't know anybody that can do that. Never mind. So, but then I realized years later that the R Trem, which is a little bit different, has the same routing port or whatever you want to call it. And the Trem would be a drop-in. So yeah, I know. But it's great that you're able to do that. You did it all your own, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I always do that. And I completely wrecked this 12-string Telecaster. I love that Tele. I had visions of, I'm just going to bolt this neck on and I'm going to put this different 12-string bridge on it. All the holes are going to line up. Everything's going to, it didn't work that way. I had to route the pickup hole bigger for the new bridge. And then without even checking, I said, okay, now I'm ready. And I went and grabbed the neck and I got to route the neck pocket now. It's like, son of a bitch. So my whole dream of keeping because I love that guitar. It's an ash bodied. It was a good Tele. I say it was a good Tele. It's no longer a good Tele. Now it's the Cabo Wabo OU812 12-string Telecaster is what that is. So.
Well, we can't wait for the next video. That's, I think Jim and I both will say thank you so much to Headless,
absolutely,
USA for everything that they've done. It's a dream come true for a lot of us because, gosh, years went by. We could not find those things. So, thank you so much for reoffering all that stuff. I think it's great. I think before we wrap it up, I just will say that I guess, Jim, you're going to go to the NAMM show.
I am going to the NAMM show. Yep, I'll be there on Friday.
Yep. I'm going to be flying in myself on Thursday late afternoon. I'll be staying in Hollywood. And then I'm going to probably Uber over to Anaheim. So I will be at the NAMM show all day on Friday myself. And then you got a gig, I think you said, on Saturday, huh? Or no, Sunday.
It's on Saturday, so I'll leave early Saturday morning from LA, Anaheim, and I'm flying up to Portland, Salem, Oregon, and we're playing an Eddie Van Halen tribute show at the beautiful historic Elsinore Theater. It's an 1,100-seat, gorgeous old theater, and
that's awesome.
And the organizer's been after me for a few years to do it, and now I've got the perfect excuse to do it. So I'm playing the 4 songs. There's all guitar players and I'm playing with 2 different drummers and 2 different bass players, and I think 3 different singers. So, but for 4 songs, and we've never rehearsed. I've never rehearsed. I've never played with any of these guys. They gave me Loss of Control, Mean Street, Center Swing, and Dirty Movies.
Wow, good for you. Whoa, so, what are you for guitars? What are you going to play?
I'm just taking. Yeah, I'm taking this one.
Yeah,
and it's going in a flight case, so it's going in the cargo hold, and I'm changing aircraft on each leg of every flight I'm taking. Yeah. So pray for that guitar to show up in Oregon when I need it. I'm not worried about the case. It's one of those SKB complete pressure regulating. I've flown with that thing all the time. It's all the luggage handling that I'm worried about. So I'm hoping I have a guitar when I get there. If not, we'll figure out something else.
Well, that's great. Gosh, I tell you, I hope there's some video somewhere of that show because I'd love to check it out.
There will be a ton of video. There's always a ton of video, and you'll see it all over the place. So you'll see me fall flat on my face playing Loss of Control with guys I'd never played it with before. Talk about walking into a place and playing by the seat of your pants with a lot of eye contact. I always thought, and what I was describing to the bass player and I were talking. We've never met each other before, and we were talking, we were chatting. I said, Loss of Control, I look at it as Van Halen. They had this idea, this song. It's a train. It leaves the station and it's going to a certain destination. And their entire mission through that entire song is to just keep the train on the track, because it is the loosest, wildest, goofiest. I mean, it's a lot of fun. And I'm used to playing with my brother, but I grew up playing with my brother. I mean, he and I are, you know, drums and guitar. That's what I'm used to. So I don't worry about it. I'm a little concerned about this one. So we'll see.
Well, there goes back to what you said earlier, women and children first. They were dialed in, and they were just playing by the seat of their pants. And, you know, I think if anybody can handle it, you can handle it.
I'm going to do my best.
Fall down the stairs and on your feet.
That's right. Something like that. And always smile when you make a mistake. Just, all right, there it is.
What did that say? If you make a mistake, or his dad said, do it twice and smile. That way they think you meant it. Just keep pedaling.
And you know, you see me do that on the videos. When I screw a part up, I'll always make some goofy little eyebrow thing or a grin or something, because I don't edit that stuff. I just track it and play it, because that's why I always put my disclaimers in there. It's not a tutorial on how to play Van Halen. I'm just doing the tone thing for you. So, well,
it's funny because I just watched your 5150 video the other day, and there was a couple of times you went like this, you smiled. There a couple of times you went like that, and I never heard a mistake though. I thought you were doing the right thing because it sounded great to me.
No, I screw up when I do that, so that's my thing. So anyway,
what are you gonna do? Well, speaking of NAMM, I'm going to be there too. So Jim and I are going to hopefully meet up sometime Friday afternoon and go out for a drink.
I'll be at, not to cut you off, I'll be at IK. I'll be at IK for a good part of it at their booth.
Sure.
Tris Mahaffey Amplifiers, and Steven Rosen, they're sharing a booth. So they've got me scheduled at 1 o'clock to go do a thing with them. So I'll be over at that side.
Nice. Steve and I are supposed to meet up. Actually, Steve just texted me the other day too. We're supposed to meet up at some point. You know how it is. You got all these people you're supposed to meet up with, and I don't know. There's not enough time in the day. Yeah. My son-in-law wanted me to show this. This is my son-in-law. I'm sorry. My stepson wanted me to show this. Grayson made me this badge for my YouTube channel. And he says, Rob, you got to wear this. You got to wear this. I said, okay, I'll have that along with my NAMM badge. But Jim, we gotta hook up. We definitely gotta.
Absolutely.
And I just show you something here too. So I picked this up a few months ago, and it's actually right next to me, but I got it secured to the table. Speaking of fair warning, Electro Harmonist mini synthesizer.
You know.
And, it sounds incredible, Jim, and I got it hooked up to a flanger and my little Marshall 15-watt solid state. This thing kicks ass. It's
so when we did this live, when we did Fair Warning at Reggie's, when I told you the classic albums live, and we did Fair Warning.
Yeah,
I got the app. Somebody made the app on the iPad, so I had the iPad, and I was doing that. It was running through my Marshalls, and I was playing that for.
Yeah,
and that 1 foot out the door. So
there's a patch
so cool.
The afternoon in the park. There's actually a patch for it. Yeah,
there is, and it's not quite right. You gotta. There's a couple of sliders you gotta pull, and then you move them while you're playing it too. You know, to get wow. You got to do all that stuff.
So cool. It
is super cool. I would love to play with that thing. That thing is.
If you
never had the opportunity.
Well, Jim, if you're ever in the of course you know this, and I'll tell you in person when I see it. But if you're ever in the Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont area, you have an open invitation to come by Dojo 5150 here and jam and play that and any of the guitars and spend the night, or bring your wife with you if you're traveling with her. You got an open invitation to come here.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And the same invitation goes if you're in Nashville. Come on down. Come on out.
I will absolutely come down.
We have a lot of fun here. A lot of fun.
Well, I definitely got to make it down there for sure. But last picture I'll just show is this was back in April when Dweezil came by, Dojo 5150. And if you guys follow the Facebook, Instagram stuff, that's Barney and my wife Jessie and Dweezil hanging out here, and it was a good time. He's an incredible guitarist, and what an amazing time that was. But Jim, it was great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. I very much appreciate it. It was a fun time.
Well, we got to do it again, and I want to dig into some a little bit more detail on some stuff. I know there was a million questions you guys all had, and we probably didn't get to half of them, but we did dive into a bunch of stuff, and hopefully we can do this again. I'd really like to.
Absolutely, yeah, anytime. I love doing this stuff. It's, if we can't ramble and impart wisdom here and there as we go through life, then we're missing the point.
And have a way to go with it.
There's so many, and I'll end it with this: is I was fortunate enough. I'm a couple of years older, a few years older. I got to come up, and I saw all the legacy acts in their prime, in their heyday, and it was just a magical time for music. And it was pre-YouTube, it was pre-tablature, it was
internet.
All that stuff. And I feel like there's a lot that we can impart on the excited, the people that grew up beyond that, that had all that stuff. We're kind of like the keepers of the truth, the history, the thing. And it's fun to talk about it because it was a completely different thing. It really was. And you developed your own voice, and you developed it, and you didn't watch YouTube videos to check things out and figure it out. And then that's just what we are now. And you have to embrace that technology, but there's a certain magic that just comes from throw the rules out. Do what Ed said. Throw the rules out. Don't do what everybody else is doing. Figure it out. You can run the Variac at 60 volts. You really can.
Yeah.
There's no that whole 90. That's a whole nother story. But that whole 90-volt story comes from Dave Friedman. Just so everybody knows, that does not come from Ed. It comes from Dave.
Yeah.
So all of that stuff is break the rules, try everything, experiment, do everything you can. Just enjoy what you do.
That's what it's all about: having fun, enjoying what you do.
Yep. No rules.
Jim, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob.
Don't hang up once we go off. Hang tight. We'll just I'll chat with you for a second before we go.
Right.
But everybody, thank you so much for watching this show. This is one I've wanted to do for a while, and over the weekend, I reached out to Jim and asked if he'd be willing to do this, and he was gracious enough to say yes. So I'm very honored to have you on the show. Please keep up the good work.
Absolutely.
Excited to see what you. It's just great. Did in a candy store, but look forward to meeting you in NAMM, sir. And thank you everybody for watching. And I will see you soon. I may have a chance to do one more show before the NAMM show, and we'll talk about some different guitars. I know I get messages every day for, can you do a show on this guitar, and talk about the different things, and I'll see what I can do. But thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate it. Jim, we'll talk to you soon. We'll see you in California.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.